Chapter 1074. The second stage is also very simple. The Rong Xiu raised his hand. A crack suddenly appeared in the void. Then, a huge snow-white figure slowly walked out of it. It was a white lion with a muscular body. Its fur was snow-white, and only its eyes were icy blue, emitting a cold light. Its aura was shocking. It walked toward the Rong Xiu, its paws landing on the ground as it walked silently. But those sharp claws were vaguely visible. It walked to the Rong Xiu's side and lay down obediently, looking down with a pair of majestic and murderous eyes. As if looking at ants. Wherever it passed, the cold air was oppressive. Everyone subconsciously held their breaths. This was a divine beast. And its level was extremely high. Xue's eyes contracted. Divine beast. The Rong Xiu stroked Xue's head and said casually, "Whoever can subdue it will be considered qualified." In the main hall, there was a series of gasps. The divine beast contracted by His Highness the Saint. It was rumored to be ferocious and extremely powerful. It was obvious how difficult it was to subdue it. Those who were slightly weaker would be courting death if they went up. Some of the women's faces had already turned pale, and they were trembling. They thought that participating in the consort selection was just a competition of family background, talent, and beauty. But they didn't expect that His Highness the Saint would take them by surprise. To compete in this? Gosh, that's a divine beast. According to rumors, its strength is comparable to a god-level master. I'm only at the peak of level 8, how can I be its opponent? I don't dare to even level 9. I really don't know what His Highness the Saint is thinking. If I also have a contracted divine beast, it'll be much easier, right? It's easy to say, but how can a divine beast be so easy to obtain? Ordinary people like us don't have to think about the position of consort. Only the most powerful clans had such resources. For example, Miss Jiang. It was said that when she was 10 years old, Yun Tiang's clan leader had personally caught a divine beast cub and made it her contracted magical beast. There's no way we can catch up to this kind of luck. Many people started whispering to each other. Jiang Jiwon heaved a sigh of relief. Xue? That's good. On the one hand, she had contracted a divine beast and was not weaker than Xue. On the other hand, she and Xue could be considered old acquaintances, so it was naturally much easier for her to deal with Xue. Thinking of this, Jiang Jiwon took a step forward. Your Highness, I'm willing to be the first. Chu Liuyue's mouth twitched when he saw Xue lying beside Rong Xiu's feet. So the reason it left earlier was to make an appearance now? She really didn't know what would happen if these people knew that this majestic white lion had asked for a hug from her the night before. What would happen? Seeing that Jiang Jiwon was going to be the first one, Chu Liyue simply stepped aside. Xue immediately looked at her with resentment. I thought she was going to be the first one. If she made a move directly, wouldn't the second round be over? Now, he had to drag this out even more and go through a lot of trouble. Chu Liyue pretended not to see it and smiled politely at Jiang Jiwon. Miss Jiang, please. After he finished speaking, he returned to his seat with a carefree look on his face. Xue looked up at her mistress again. If it weren't for you, would I be implicated? Rong Xiu also glanced at it indifferently. It only came back after shouting 3 times. I wonder whose demonic beast this is? Xue sighed in its heart. If it wasn't for its bad eyesight back then, how could it be so miserable now? Rong Xiu raised his chin. Xue then stood up. Let's solve these problems first. Swoosh. Xue leaped from the seat of honor to the middle of the hall, only 10 steps away from Jiang Jiwon. Its coquettish and shameless expression had long since disappeared and was replaced by a cold and dignified expression. Chu Liyue watched from the side and rested her chin on one hand. She found it very interesting. It was only at this moment that she belatedly remembered that such a huge beast was actually a divine beast. Speaking of which, she actually hadn't seen Xue fight seriously. Who asked it to always hide its true strength like its master in the past? Thinking of this, Chu Liyue raised her eyebrows and looked like she was ready to watch a show. Xue, long time no see. A smile appeared on Jiang Jiwon's face. She knew very well how much Rong Xiu valued this divine beast. It was important to have a good relationship with it. But in the face of Jiang Jiwan's flattery, Xue seemed unmoved. It tilted its head and a trace of impatience appeared in its eyes. It didn't seem to care about the identity of the person in front of it. Instead, it was only blaming her for not starting. Its sharp claws scratched the ground. A thin layer of frost quickly condensed. It was already prepared for battle. Jiang Jiwan instantly felt very awkward. She took a deep breath and comforted herself. Perhaps it was because they hadn't seen each other for many years that it was treating her like this. However, she was still confident that she could subdue it. So, she put away these thoughts and held her breath. The next moment, a blue force gathered in her palm. 6-pole lock. The blue force instantly transformed into 6 ropes and flew towards Xue, enveloping it. In the blink of an eye, the 6 ropes had already formed a huge hexagon in the air above Xue. And inside, light flickered and quickly formed a strange pattern. Immortal Water Tomb's Jiang family's totem. A cry of surprise came from the crowd. Looks like she's determined to win this round. She's even summoned her totem. This 6-pole lock is one of the ultimate moves of the Immortal Water Tomb. It looks simple, but in reality, its sealing power is extremely strong. Rumor has it that even if one's strength is 1 level lower than the opponent, the cultivator can still use this move to seal the opponent in battle. And then counterattack. Using this move to deal with this round is just right. If Jiang Jiwan directly wins, then the rest of the people don't need to go up. Jiang Jiwan looked at Xue. Xue, if you admit defeat now, I can stop. This is good for both of them. Xue looked up and a trace of disdain flashed across its eyes. Admit defeat? Wasn't she overestimating herself? 6-pole lock? What the hell? Xue raised its paw and waved it fiercely. Several streaks of light flew past. Chi. Instantly, the crowd heard the sound of something being cut apart. Then, they saw that the 6-pole lock that was hovering above Xue's head had been cut open from the middle. The light on it quickly dimmed. The blood in Jiang Jiwan's chest and abdomen surged. She staggered and almost fell to the ground. She looked at Xue in shock. How did its strength suddenly improve so much? Xue bared its teeth and swiped its paw at her. Did you really think that I ate so much yellow sand for nothing? Digression. Kavinka felt terrible. Update at 6 p.m. Chapter 1075. A vigorous figure suddenly appeared in front of Jiang Jiwan. It jumped with all its might and blocked Xue's claw. Rip! The sound of sharp claws tearing through flesh was jarring. Jiang Jiwan hurriedly retreated, her face pale. In that instant, she really thought she was going to die under Xue's claws. Everyone looked over and saw that the one blocking Jiang Jiwan was also a fiend. It was a muscular leopard. Its entire body was brown with black spots, and it had a pair of wings on its back. A pair of jade-green eyes, deep and terrifying. This was Jiang Jiwan's contracted divine beast, the double-winged black star leopard. At this moment, Xue had viciously torn off a piece of flesh on its back. Fresh blood was dripping from the wound. On the other hand, Xue's claws were stained with some blood. It was completely unaffected. Everyone could see that although this double-winged black star leopard was also a divine beast, its level and ability were obviously lower than Xue's. In such a situation, it would not be easy for Jiang Jiwan to win. Jiang Jiwan was still in shock. If the double-winged black star leopard had not appeared in time, she would have. The more panicked she was, the deeper the hatred in her heart. She gritted her teeth. Leopard go! However, the double-winged black star leopard did not immediately move. It seemed to hesitate. It lowered its body warily, but its gaze toward Xue was filled with respect that could not be ignored. The hierarchy of fiends was strict. High-level fiends usually had strong control and deterrence over low-level fiends. This was an inheritance that came from the bloodline. All fiends had to obey it. Hence, although the double-winged black star leopard had heard Jiang Jiwan's command, its respect for higher-level fiends could not be erased. It had only jumped out in a moment of desperation earlier because it was forced by the power of the master-servant contract between Jiang Jiwan and it. However, it was really difficult for it to fight Shui head-on now. Jiang Jiwan was furious. Leopard. The winged black star leopard scratched the ground twice with its claws. Shui glared fiercely at the man and beast opposite her. A cold light flashed across her eyes. In the next moment, it quickly scuttled out. Take the initiative to attack. Their target was the winged black star panther. But the double-winged black star leopard spread its wings and was about to fly into the air to fight. However, before it could do anything, there was a flash of light, and Shui was already right in front of it. The winged black star leopard was shocked. He immediately ran in another direction. It was fast. However, Shui was even faster. With a light tap of its toes, it instantly left several afterimages in the air. Several exclamations came from the crowd. Although the double-winged black star leopard's level is lower than the white lion's, its speed is top-notch. Logically speaking, it should have the upper hand in this aspect. How did this happen? In the blink of an eye, Shui was already in front of the winged black star leopard. It raised its claws and slapped down. But the winged black comet panther was unable to react in time, and its head was directly hit. Its vision turned black, and its body fell heavily to the ground uncontrollably. Bang! A muffled sound was heard. Leopard! Jiang Jiwan was shocked and immediately wanted to charge over. However, Shui did not give her the chance. It quickly landed and opened its mouth to bite without hesitation. No! Jiang Jiwan's voice became shrill. Crack! The sound of bones breaking was exceptionally crisp. One of the winged black star leopard's wings had been bitten off from the middle by Shui. Blood splattered everywhere. The black bones were exposed, and one could even see the broken stubble. It was an eerie sight. Jiang Jiwan gasped. She was so agitated by the scene before her that she almost fainted. Her father had personally found this winged black star leopard for her on her 10th birthday. After so many years, she had taken good care of it and was very attached to it. Now that one of its wings had been bitten off, how could she bear it? Shui raised its head. Its icy blue eyes were cold and had a hint of provocation. Its meaning was clear. Do you want to continue? The winged black star leopard struggled to get up. Unfortunately, Shui was suppressing it, and it could not move. Jiang Jiwan was shocked and furious. However, she knew that if this continued, it would not end well. She was unwilling to accept this. She clenched her fists, and her nails pierced her palms. Everything that had happened earlier kept replaying in her mind. The six-pole lock was easily torn apart, and the winged black star leopard could not retaliate. I admit defeat. Jiang Jiwan gritted her teeth and spat out these words. The first challenge of the second stage ended just like that. It started naturally, but ended unexpectedly. Before this, everyone thought highly of Jiang Jiwan. However, who would have thought that things would turn out like this? Shui's attacks were clean and direct. It was a one-sided suppression. Even someone as strong as Jiang Jiwan was defeated. After a rough calculation, he realized that he hadn't even been able to hold on for 15 minutes. Hearing her admit defeat, Shui jumped down from the winged black star leopard. It looked down and rubbed its claws against the ground in disdain. The winged black star leopard was such a lowly creature. Its blood would only stain its noble claws. If not for the fact that it wanted to end the battle quickly, it would not have bothered to do this. Jiang Jiwan retreated with the winged black star leopard. Rong Xiu leaned against the throne. His expression was still languid. Next. His voice was low and pleasant. It was light and gentle. However, the expressions of many women changed. Next. Even Jiang Jiwan was in such a state. Wouldn't the others be worse off? They yearned for the position of princess consort, but they had to be alive first. They did not want to lose their lives for nothing. Wouldn't that be too much of a loss? Rong Xiu raised his brows and looked around. Many people lowered their heads. They were obviously unwilling to accept the challenge. 36 respected Elder Ming looked at Chu Luiwei a few times. He could not help but urge her. Didn't you form a contract with a divine beast too? He looked like he was about to pull Chu Luiyue up. Upon hearing this, many people in the palace looked at Chu Luiyue, including Jiang Jiwan. She was treating the winged black star leopard's wounds. When she heard that, she immediately looked up. Divine beast? That Duguyu has one too? She pursed her lips. So what if she has a divine beast? If she goes up, she'll end up like me. Chu Luiyue stood up and walked toward Shueshui. Finally, she stopped about 10 steps away. She has a divine beast too? I wonder what level it is. She doesn't seem to have any background. Her divine beast's level shouldn't be too high, right? But she knows His Highness the Saint and 36 respected Elder Ming. Maybe, amidst the crowd's discussions, a small red figure appeared on Chu Luiyue's shoulder. It was Dumpling. Then, with a whoosh, Dumpling suddenly spread her wings. See how I'll deal with you today. Shueshui also seemed to be energized. Roar! The hatred of stealing my master is irreconcilable. Whoever wins will be her fiend. Chu Luiyue. Chapter 1076. She raised her hand. Hey, that, whoosh. Before she could finish her sentence, Dumpling had already flown out. Shueshui leaped. The two weapons clashed and instantly became entangled in a fight. You want to steal my master? Dream on. You've already gotten such a good thing, and you're not letting other beasts dream on? I want it. Bah. You shameless thing. Your real master is still sitting up there. Talk after you win. One snow white and one crimson red, the two figures entangled with each other, and it was difficult to tell who had the upper hand. Chu Luiyue curled her fingers and retracted her hand awkwardly. It seemed like she didn't need to do anything. She raised her eyes to take a look. A certain someone who was blatantly despised had a calm expression, and there was even a faint smile at the corner of her mouth. However, when she occasionally looked at Shueshui, there was a hint of coldness. Chu Luiyue mourned for Shueshui in her heart for a moment, and then chose to watch the show. Anyway, this wasn't their first time fighting, and it would naturally be fine after the fight. Compared to Chu Luiyue's relaxed and calm expression, the others who were watching were dumbfounded. They looked at the scene in front of them in disbelief. Duguyu's divine beast was actually on par with His Highness the Holy Sun's divine beast? That's a red-tailed phoenix. Rumor has it that its bloodline is closest to the ancient divine beast, the crimson gold heavenly phoenix. Someone suddenly shouted in shock. According to this level and strength, it was normal for it to have such combat strength. However, not only did this explanation not clear up the doubts of the crowd, but it also made them even more shocked. Red-tailed phoenix? Such a divine beast is extremely precious, and even the various tribes might not have it. This Duguyu, isn't her luck too good? It's not just luck. The red-tailed phoenix has a noble status and is extremely difficult to tame. If one doesn't have a certain level of strength, it's definitely impossible to make it willingly form a contract. The way I see it, this Duguyu does have some skills. There's always someone better than you. Although she looks ordinary, there's really nothing to say about her ability. Jiang Jiwan could hear all kinds of discussions. She gritted her teeth and the veins on the back of her hand popped out. Red-tailed red phoenix, red-tailed phoenix. That was indeed an existence of a higher level than her contracted magical beast. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, she definitely wouldn't have believed that such an ordinary girl of unknown origin could actually form a contract with such a divine beast. She had always thought that the winged black star leopard she had contracted was already very good. After all, talented people like Rong Xiu were extremely rare, and divine beasts like Shueshui were also extremely hard to find. But this Duguyu, the most infuriating thing was that while the two spiritual beasts were exchanging blows, she was standing by the side with a lazy expression, as if she didn't care about this matter at all. Suddenly, Jiang Jiwan was startled, and a guess appeared in her mind. That Duguyu looked so confident. Could it be that she was already certain that he would win? She knew Rong Xiu and 36 respected Elder Ming. Moreover, the attitude of those two towards her was indeed different from that of ordinary people. In the end, Shui was also Rong Xiu's contracted divine beast. If he wanted to, Shui's victory or defeat was still in his hands? Screech. Following Dumpling's clear cry, the two entangled beasts finally separated. Shui's fur was messy, and there were a few bloodstains on its body. Especially its nose, which was directly pecked by Dumpling's sharp beak and was bleeding. It was a miserable sight. Dumpling wasn't any better. Many of its feathers had been plucked off, and there was even a bald patch on its tail. The two stared at each other, panting heavily. It was obvious that they were still not convinced of each other's victory. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that this battle was almost a draw, with both sides winning and losing. But this result was already very shocking. There was almost no one else in the entire Yuntian Tower who could fight to a draw with His Highness the Saint's contracted divine beast. Seeing that the two were about to continue fighting, Chu Liyue finally spoke. "Dumpling, come back." Only then did Dumpling retract its wings and return to its original small form, landing on Chu Liyue's shoulder. Then, it raised its head and glanced at Dumpling very coldly. "What's there to be so arrogant about? This master belongs to whoever it belongs to." Shui roared indignantly. Dumpling sneered, then nestled in Chu Liyue's shoulder, intimately rubbing against her face, and threw a disdainful look at Shui. "I'm going to piss you off." Shui was angry and couldn't help but look at Chu Liyue pitifully. "Ahem." Chu Liyue coughed. "You guys still want to fight?" Shui turned around resentfully. It was sad. It listlessly returned to Rong Xiu's side and lay down weakly. Everyone was speechless. This was, it admitted defeat. Rong Xiu glanced at it. It didn't seem to have deliberately gone easy on it just now. In that case, Dumpling's strength had increased rapidly, and it had indeed reached the point where it could fight with Shui. As if it had been seen through, Shui simply buried its head. "I'm not listening." Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows slightly and looked away. "It seems that Miss Dugu still wins this round. Wait." Before Rong Xiu could finish speaking, he was suddenly interrupted. The person who spoke was Jiang Jiwan, who had left the arena in a sorry state just now. She stood up. "Your Highness, there's something I don't understand." Rong Xiu's expression was indifferent. "Miss Jiang, please speak." Jiang Jiwan was silent for a moment, then raised her hand and pointed directly at Chu Liyue. "I want to know, did Shui deliberately let her win that round just now?" The crowd was in an uproar. Jiang Jiwan was too bold to directly ask such a question. Rong Xiu seemed to smile. "Miss Jiang, are you suspecting that I'm unfair?" Shui was his contracted divine beast. Suspecting Shui was naturally suspecting him. Jiang Jiwan pursed her lips. "Ziyuan doesn't dare. Ziyuan only asks that your Highness give me a chance. If Miss Dugu can defeat me, I will naturally be convinced." As she spoke, she looked at Chu Liyue and said firmly, "I wonder if Miss Dugu dares to accept?" There was dead silence all around. Countless pairs of eyes looked at Chu Liyue. In fact, not only Jiang Jiwan, but they also had the same doubts in their hearts. In this almost suffocating atmosphere, Chu Liyue raised her eyebrows slightly, then smiled slowly, and there seemed to be stars twinkling in her eyes. She nodded with a relaxed expression. Digression, Kawin felt uncomfortable. Today at 4 o'clock. Tomorrow at 6 o'clock. Chapter 1077. Then Chu Liyue's gaze shifted, and it landed on the bloody winged black star leopard at the side. Miss Jiang's contracted divine beast doesn't seem to have the strength to fight anymore. Although it can't, there's still me. Jiang Jiwan walked forward. The two of them faced each other. "As long as you and your divine beast can defeat me, I'll be convinced." As soon as Jiang Ziyuan finished speaking, she closed her eyes. A layer of faint light flickered. Then, a shocking aura erupted from her body. "Demigod!" Several gasps could be heard from the crowd. "She has indeed broken through to the demigod realm like the rumors say." A 22-year-old demigod. She should be a genius second only to His Highness the Holy Sun, right? I heard that she's also a mystic master. She's really outstanding. I wonder what Duguyu's strength is at? Hearing the discussions around her, Chu Luiwei tilted her head and glanced at Rong Xiu. His strength had indeed reached the demigod realm and might even be higher now. If she wanted to catch up to him, she would have to spend a lot of time and effort. Miss Dugu, please. Jiang Jiwan said. Chu Luiwei retracted her gaze and smiled. Then, she reached out and touched the chain around her neck. That was the yuan item that Dugu Mabao gave her to conceal her aura. With a touch, the layer of concealment on her body dissipated. She activated her force and her real aura appeared. There was a moment of dead silence in the main hall. Jiang Jiwan was the first to widen her eyes in shock. A stage 7 warrior? Are you kidding me? This Duguyu, who had always been extremely powerful in the end, was just a mere rank 7 warrior? She thought that she was at least a stage 9 warrior. Otherwise, how could she be so bold and presumptuous? Chu Luiwei didn't seem to notice anything wrong. She smiled and asked, why? What? Is there a problem? This was an admission. Because she was too shocked, Jiang Jiwan couldn't react for a while. She couldn't help but laugh, her eyes filled with absurdity and disbelief. Rank 7 warrior? Are you sure you want to continue fighting me? She only needed one move to finish off a cultivator of this level. Chu Luiwei blinked. Wasn't eldest Miss Jiang the one who suggested this? Could it be that she's regretting it? Jiang Jiwan found this ridiculous. Is this Duguyu crazy? Did she know the difference between a rank 7 warrior and a demigod? At this time, the surrounding crowd also came back to their senses. The way they looked at Chu Luiwei was speechless. It was as if they were looking at an ignorant clown. A rank 7 warrior dares to be so arrogant? To think that I thought she could fight with eldest young Miss Jiang just now. How did a cultivator of this level get in here? In this entire ethereal hall, there shouldn't be any cultivator lower than her, right? The crowd discussed fervently. There were even people who deliberately asked Lin Tianfeng, how come the ethereal hall is so desolate? Patriarch Lin, when did the heavenly cave cliff fall to such an extent that even a mere rank 7 martial artist is qualified to come to the heavenly cloud tower? Their words were filled with sarcasm. In the world of God, the strong were respected. A rank 7 warrior like Chu Luiwei wasn't qualified to be placed here. It was no wonder the crowd had such an attitude. Lin Tianfeng's brows were tightly knitted together. Although Miss Dugu's cultivation isn't high, she's an 8th grade celestial physician. Furthermore, she cured my son Ji Fei's illness. Our Lin family is indebted to her, and she's an honored guest of the ethereal hall. I hope that everyone will be careful with their words. As soon as he said that, some people quietened down. That Duguyu was actually a celestial physician? Although an 8th grade celestial physician wasn't the best in the eyes of the crowd, her identity as a celestial physician was indeed worthy of respect. Not to mention she looked very young. If she really had top-notch talent as a celestial physician, everyone would be convinced. However, there were some who didn't think much of it. Lin Tianfeng, even if you want to speak up for her, you don't have to lie like that, right? Your ethereal hall also has a 9th grade celestial physician, and even they couldn't do anything about it after so many years, let alone an 8th grade celestial physician? This ear-piercing voice came from the corner. Lin Tianfeng turned around and saw that the one who spoke was Cold Spring of the Frosty Mountain Valley. He said calmly, "With His Highness here, I wouldn't dare to lie." "You," Cold Spring choked. Now that Lin Tianfeng had brought up His Highness, who would dare to speak up? He flicked his sleeves fiercely. Even if she's an 8th grade celestial physician, she's bound to lose this round. Jiang Jiwan raised her chin slightly. "If you admit defeat now, I'll let you go." His eyes and expression were filled with a trace of arrogance and lofty aura. It was as if Chu Luiwei was just a lowly ant in front of her. This tone made Chu Luiwei very unhappy. She shrugged. "I'm sorry, but I don't have such plans for the time being." Jiang Jiwan sneered inwardly. "You don't know what's good for you." "Alright. Since that's the case, let's begin. I hope that later, Miss Dugu won't regret it." Jiang Jiwan didn't want Duguyu to give up either. She wanted to take this opportunity to teach her a lesson. Anyway, she had already pushed it away, but Duguyu didn't want to take the opportunity. Then, there wouldn't be a chance to regret it later. Chu Luiyue nodded and took a step back. Jiang Jiwon was stunned. Chu Luiyue patted Dumpling on her shoulder. Dumpling, go help Miss Jiang move her muscles first. Jiang Jun came back to her senses and mocked and despised her in her heart. She knew that she was no match for her, so she sent a divine beast to fight? What a good plan. Unfortunately, this Duguyu was too naive. Divine beasts were very strong, especially the red-tailed phoenix in front of her with an extremely powerful bloodline power. Unfortunately, this was Duguyu's contracted divine beast. The level it could perform was closely related to Duguyu's own strength. A divine beast contracted by a 7th-grade warrior was just a joke. Swoosh! Jiang Juan waved her hand, and a blue cloak flew out. That cloak was light and agile, and when it fluttered in the wind, one could vaguely see silver light spots. A shocking pressure spread out from it. Mid-grade divine weapon, wind calming silk? The immortal water mausoleum indeed has a deep foundation to casually use a mid-grade divine weapon. This time, the red-tailed phoenix is in danger. Jiang Juan's slender waist turned, and at the same time, she waved out the wind-calming silk. The sound of something breaking through the air was heard. Like a blue stream of water, it flew out instantly. Dumpling flapped her wings. A ball of red flames also quickly met the attack. The scorching hot temperature instantly raised the temperature of the entire hall. Chapter 1078. Boom. The red and blue colors collided fiercely. Sparks flew everywhere. However, the calming wind silk did not directly penetrate this terrifying fireball. Instead, the edges were stained with red flames. Sparks spread. Jiang Juan was shocked and swung it hard. Light flashed on the calming wind silk. Instantly, it was as if frost was shaken off. Those flames were suppressed and then extinguished. But this was only a small part. The huge fireball in front of her was still like an impassable wall. It blocked the path of the calming wind silk. Jiang Jiwan's heart stirred. Her footsteps crisscrossed, and she quickly left the place and ran in another direction. At the same time, the calming wind silk also changed its position in midair. From the initial direct attack, it changed to entangling the fireball. Soon, half of the fireball was covered by the calming wind silk. Screech! Dumpling let out a clear cry. It flapped its wings and rushed directly toward Jiang Jiwan. A strong wind blew. Jiang Jiwan knew that things were not good. She immediately set up a barrier in front of her, and at the same time, she tiptoed and retreated. Tuanzi smashed the enchantment with its claws. Jiang Jiwan's chest tightened, and a trace of surprise arose in her heart. That Duguyu was just a rank 7 warrior. How could her contracted divine beast be so powerful? She swung her wrist. The calming wind silk flew toward Dumpling with a cold aura. The moment it was about to approach, several lightning flashed. This was Jiang Jiwan using the power of Tianlei gathered on it. Duguyu had not broken through to the god realm, so her contracted divine beast would definitely not be able to withstand this power. Just as this thought flashed through Jiang Jiwan's mind, she saw the red-tailed phoenix opposite her tear at the calming wind silk without any hesitation. Swish! Dumpling actually cut a hole in the calming wind silk. And those several powers of Tianlei seemed to have no effect on it at all. How is this possible? Jiang Jiwan was shocked. However, she did not know that Dumpling was not born a red-tailed red phoenix. It was only after experiencing the lightning tribulation that it finally broke through its shackles and stepped into this level. Therefore, it did not fear the power of Tianlei. Moreover, although Chu Luiyue was not a divine realm master, he had a trace of divine power in his body. With this power, Dumpling would be able to display extraordinary strength. Seeing that this trick wouldn't work, Jiang Jiwan made a prompt decision and pulled the wind-fixing silk in front of her. At the same time, she took a few steps back and stood firm. She closed her eyes, crossed her hands in front of her, and the aura around her soared. A ball of blue origin power gathered in her palm. At the same time, a strange pattern appeared between her brows. It was the totem of the immortal water mausoleum. In an instant, a vast and majestic pressure that seemed to have come from ancient times descended. The crowd was in an uproar. Is she going to use her totem power? I didn't expect this red-tailed red phoenix to be able to force her to this extent. That divine beast is powerful, but after Jiang Ji1 uses this trick, this battle should be over. You have to know that with the support of totem power, a cultivator can display strength that is far beyond their original level. Chu Luiwen narrowed her eyes. She did feel a faint threat from Jiang Ji1. A wave spread from Jiang Ji1's body. Then, a blue light flew out from the totem between her brows. Bang! The blue light instantly turned into countless light spots, with Jiang Ji1 as the center, spreading in all directions. Wherever the blue light spots passed, the space froze inch by inch. Very quickly, the blue dots of light around her formed a huge sphere. Dumpling was also trapped in it. Chu Liwei slowly clenched her fists and stared at the scene in front of her. This was totem power? Swoosh! Jiang Jun suddenly opened her eyes. Black primordial slash. As soon as she finished speaking, a blue light blade flew out from her palm. A sharp sound was heard. In the next moment, the blue light blade was already heading straight for Dumpling. Dumpling wanted to break free from the predicament in front of her, but her movements became very slow. Because the totem power that Jiang Ji1 erupted had already helped her form a divine territory, and it had an extremely terrifying pressure. Dumpling was no match for it at all. The light blade was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, it was already in front of Dumpling, and it was about to cut off her neck. Jiang Ji1's lips curled into a smug sneer. So what if there was a divine beast? Her master didn't have the strength and was still vulnerable in the end. At this moment, a black shadow suddenly flew over. It directly passed through the blue divine territory and blocked in front of the red-tailed red phoenix. Boom! The blue light blade was hit by a force and shattered with a bang. Jiang Juan suffered a backlash, and her chest shook, and she spat out a mouthful of blood. She looked up in shock and anger, only to see a huge black eagle blocking all her attacks. When she saw the other party's appearance, Jiang Ji1 suddenly widened her eyes, and then she couldn't help but exclaim, "The legendary three-eyed eagle? Those shiny black feathers, those sharp and cold vertical pupils, that terrifying aura that made people's hearts turn cold. Wasn't this the legendary divine beast, the legendary three-eyed eagle?" The other people in the hall were also shocked by this sudden scene. Originally, the battle was going well, and Jiang Ji1 was about to win. Why did a legendary three-eyed eagle suddenly appear? The legendary three-eyed eagle hugged its wings and then suddenly spread them out. Boom! An astonishing pressure spread out. A dazzling golden light flew out from its vertical pupil. Like a sharp sword, it directly split the blue divine territory in front of it in half. Jiang Ji1 knew that this was not good and immediately wanted to retreat. However, she was fast, but the legendary three-eyed eagle was faster. In the blink of an eye, the golden light had already entered an unstoppable state and was heading straight for her. Jiang Ji1 was extremely shocked. She hurriedly pulled the calming wind silk in front of her to block the attack. However, the calming wind silk barely managed to block the attack for her before it shattered with a bang. Jiang Juan was hit, and her body flew backward and fell heavily to the ground. A muffled sound. Jiang Juan's body was in severe pain, and her head was dizzy, and she almost fainted. Xuan. Jiang Hetien suddenly stood up. Patriarch Jiang. Rong Xiu, who was sitting at the head of the table, suddenly spoke lazily. If you go on stage now, it's equivalent to representing Jiang Ji1 to admit defeat. Jiang Hetien suddenly stopped in his tracks. Looking at the blood-stained and pale Jiang Juan, he clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles cracked. At this moment, his hatred for Chu Luiwei had reached the extreme. Jiang Jun was the apple of his eye, and she had never been beaten to such a state in all these years. His eyes were filled with anger as he shouted at Chu Luiwei. "Dugyu, how dare you use such a despicable method in front of His Highness the Saint and everyone else?" Chu Luiwei narrowed his eyes. Despicable method? May I ask, Patriarch Jiang, what have I done to cross the line? This is a duel between you and Ziyuan, and you openly asked for external help. You, Patriarch Jiang, you've misunderstood, said Chu Luiwei with a smile, interrupting him. This legendary three-eyed eagle is also my contracted divine beast. Chapter 1079. Jiang Hetian's expression froze. The hall suddenly quieted down. Countless eyes filled with shock and suspicion turned to Chu Luiwei. What did she say? That legendary three-eyed eagle was also her contracted divine beast? You're lying. Jiang Hetian snapped out of his daze, his first reaction being disbelief. A person can only contract one divine beast, that's impossible. The truth is right before your eyes. If Patriarch Jiang refuses to believe it, then there's nothing I can do. Chu Luiwei raised an eyebrow at the two divine beasts. Do you want one of you to stay, or do you want to attack together? The two of them looked at each other and separated. Then, they surrounded Jiang Ziyuan from the front and the back. It was obvious that they were going to attack together. Chu Luiwei rubbed her forehead and smiled helplessly at Jiang Hetian. Patriarch Jiang, I'm so sorry. You see, both of them have bad tempers. Sometimes I can't control them. Jiang Hetian's eyebrows twitched. What a cunning duguyu. She clearly didn't want to let Jiang Jiwan go, but she pushed the blame onto the two divine beasts. Jiang Hetian's veins bulged. What kind of trick did you use? Although he asked this question, Jiang Hetian knew in his heart that these two divine beasts should indeed belong to Duguyu. Both the red-tailed phoenix and the legendary three-eyed eagle were divine beasts with extremely powerful bloodlines. If such existences were not willing, then no one could force them to do anything. Especially when it came to recognizing a master. It should be known that most of these mythological beasts were extremely arrogant. If one were to simply use some violent means to subdue them, they would rather commit suicide than submit to a cultivator that they were unwilling to follow. The fact that she had contracted a red-tailed phoenix was enough to make others envious and shocked. Who knew that she had a legendary three-eyed eagle as well? This was simply inconceivable. But now, Jiang Hetian had no time to think about it. If Patriarch Jiang insists, then there's nothing I can do. We can discuss this matter later, but for now, let's settle the matter of this duel, said Chu Luiwei lazily as she looked at the other side. Jiang Jiwan was knocked to the ground and had just barely managed to stand up. Her face and body were covered in messy bloodstains, and her expression was extremely ugly. He stared at Chu Luiwei in shock and anger. She had also heard everything that was said earlier clearly. Two divine beasts. What is the origin of this Duguyu? Eldest Miss Jiang, do you admit defeat or continue? Asked Chu Luiwei very amiably with a smile. Jiang Jiwan's lips moved slightly. Of course she didn't want to admit defeat. However, there was the legendary three-eyed eagle in front of her and the red-tailed phoenix behind her. All of them were eyeing her covetously. She had no doubt that as long as she said, continue, these two would attack at the same time. She had already used her totem power, but she still couldn't win, let alone now. Jiang Jiwan clenched her teeth, her lips and teeth filled with a thick bloody smell. She had wanted to use this opportunity to win against Duguyu and snatch back the title of number one, but she didn't expect it to develop into such a situation. She hadn't even officially fought with Duguyu, and she had already lost. In the dead silence, Jiang Jiwan closed her eyes and said word by word, I admit defeat. Eldest Miss Jiang is so straightforward. Chu Luiwei wasn't stingy with his praise, and praised sincerely. Jiang Jiwan's chest was stuffed with anger, and she almost died of suffocation. Digression, continue at 6 p.m. Chapter 1080. Finally, Jiang Hetian couldn't hold himself back anymore. He rushed forward to support Jiang Jiwan and brought her away. Xin, are you all right? Jiang Jiwan wiped the blood from the corner of her lips. Of course she wasn't all right. The consort selection test had already gone through 2 rounds, and the champion of both rounds was Duguyu. With such results, even if Duguyu couldn't become the consort, she would at least be able to stay in the Yuntian Tower. Just thinking about how she might have to face that face every day made Jiang Jiwon feel disgusted. If she didn't like Duguyu at the start, she was now filled with disgust. Jiang Hetan hurriedly ordered the heavenly doctor elder who had come with him to take Jiang Ziyuan's pulse. "Old Su, how's Ziyuan?" Jiang Hetan asked worriedly when he saw Old Su's frown. Old Su sighed. "First, Missy's life isn't in danger, but she's injured internally. I'm afraid she'll need at least half a month to recover." "How did this happen?" Jiang Hetan was shocked. Ziyuan clearly set up her god domain earlier, and she even had the calming silk to block it. Even though the legendary three-eyed eagle is powerful, it shouldn't have caused such severe injuries. This, Old Su glanced at Jiang Jiwon. First, Missy should be more aware of this, that legendary three-eyed eagle is indeed powerful. Jiang Jiwon closed her eyes and retracted her hand. She tried her best to calm down. Even though she was furious, she didn't forget that this was the ethereal hall. Countless people were looking at them from all directions. In fact, it's even stronger than the crimson-tailed phoenix. She recalled everything that had happened earlier, and her heart still trembled. When the legendary three-eyed eagle made its move, she really felt the threat of death looming over her. That shouldn't be. Jiang Hetan was even more confused. Even though the legendary three-eyed eagle is also a divine beast, it shouldn't be stronger than the crimson-tailed phoenix. However, he knew that Jiang Jiwon wouldn't lie about this matter. After a moment of silence, Old Su lowered his voice. "Patriarch, a cultivator can only form a contract with one divine beast. That Duguyu is obviously problematic. Perhaps that legendary three-eyed eagle is hiding something strange." Jiang Hetan furrowed his brows and shook his head. "Forget it. You treat Ziyuan first. We'll talk about the rest later." Chu Lue cupped his hands in the direction of the Immortal Water Mausoleum and smiled. "Eldest Miss Jiang, thank you for letting me win." Jiang Jiwon gritted her teeth, but in the end she did not flare up. Let her be smug for now. Chu Lue then surveyed her surroundings, raised her brows, and smiled lightly. "Is there anyone else who doesn't agree with the current outcome? Everyone can come up and fight. I will accompany you to the end." Dead silence. What a joke. Even Jiang Jiwon had been beaten to such a state. Who would be so blind as to rush forward? Wasn't that just looking for trouble for himself? Two divine beasts. Would an ordinary person be able to bear it? It seems that no one has any objections. Rong Xiu, who was sitting at the head of the table, spoke lazily and calmly. "Then the first place of the second round will also be Miss Dugu." Everyone had different expressions, but no one said anything else. Just then, Rong Xiu suddenly stood up. Everyone turned to look at him strangely. Then, they saw the handsome man in a black brocade robe with one hand behind his back, his thin scarlet lips slightly curved. "I have only prepared 3 rounds for this consort selection ceremony. Now that Miss Dugu has won 2 of the rounds, there is no need to proceed with the last round." He raised his hand and pointed at the woman in red standing in the distance. "The position of consort belongs to her." Everyone was shocked by his words. His Highness the Son of Saint had chosen the consort just like that? There was no third round, no foreshadowing, no warning. It was decided just like that? This was simply catching everyone off guard. "Your Highness, you can't." Jiang Hetan stood up instinctively and shouted in a deep voice. "The position of consort is extremely honorable. It concerns the prosperity of the Yuntian Tower and all the tribes. How can you make such a rash decision?" Rong Xiu's lips curved into a faint smile, but there was no smile in his eyes. In the consort selection ceremony, all the tribes of the Yuntian Tower were invited. Not a single one was left behind. Moreover, the competition was carried out fairly and justly. Everyone saw it clearly and can be considered as witnesses. Now that the results are out, she is first in both rounds. Naturally, it was reasonable for her to be chosen as the princess. Why is it a rash decision when it comes to family head Jiang? Jiang Hetan choked, his heart burning with anxiety. If Duguyu was chosen, then what about Ziyuan? He took a deep breath, his face dark. Could it be that His Highness had decided to choose Duguyu as the consort from the beginning? Then, what is the point of this round of competition? Dead silence. Only the Jiang family of the Immortal Water Mausoleum would dare to question Rong Xiu like this. Rong Xiu's smile faded, and his eyes narrowed. I did not interfere in the consort selection ceremony from beginning to end. Could it be that I helped her get first place? Jiang Hetian was speechless. That's right, everyone here saw with their own eyes how Duguyu won the 2 matches. They had no choice but to accept it. Jiang Hetian clenched his fists. He could see that Rong Xiu was interested in Duguyu. Otherwise, he would not have insisted that she participate in the consort selection ceremony. But he had always thought that even if Duguyu performed well, Rong Xiu would at most give her the status of a concubine. She was not even qualified to be a concubine. Therefore, he had never taken Duguyu seriously. But who would have thought that Rong Xiu would not only choose her, but also give her the position of consort? Where would the Immortal Water Mausoleum put their face? Seeing that this reason could not be used, Jiang Hetian immediately changed it. Your Highness, this woman's background is unknown. Even if you really want to make her your consort, you should first show her background to convince the crowd. As he spoke, he looked at Lin Tianfeng. If I remember correctly, Duguyu came with clan head Lin and the others from Cave Heaven Cliff. But she doesn't seem to be from Cave Heaven Cliff? Lin Tianfeng was still immersed in the shock of Rong Xiu directly choosing Chu Luiyue as consort. He did not react for a moment. Lin Qifei's lips moved slightly. Just as he was about to speak, a voice came from behind. She is indeed not from Cave Heaven Cliff. She is an outsider. Lin Qifei's heart skipped a beat. He turned back to look. The person who spoke was Lu Ruhai. At this moment, Lu Ruhai did not seem to notice Lin Qifei's warning look. He suddenly stood up and pointed at Chu Luiyue in the main hall. She is just an ordinary woman who came from the outside world a few days ago. Chu Luiyue looked at Lu Ruhai, narrowed her eyes, and sneered in her heart. She knew that he would not give up so easily. So this was what he was waiting for. The moment the words, outsider, came out, a storm was set off in the main hall. However, Lu Ruhai did not seem to be satisfied. Sensing Chu Luiyue's gaze, he looked over with a cold glint in his eyes. Then he pointed at Dugu Mabao. Also, she does not have a fiancé. She is already married. She even has a child. Chapter 1081. The crowd was in an uproar. Not only was Duguyu an outsider, but she also had a child? How could such a person become the princess consort? Discussions broke out as countless suspicious eyes fell on Chu Luiyue and Dugu Mabao. No wonder Cave Heaven Cliff brought a child over this time. So that's Duguyu's son? Since he's already married and has a child, how can he still participate in the princess consort selection ceremony? Isn't this a joke? This Duguyu is really bold. She played everyone in Yuntian Tower like a fiddle. She really can't be underestimated. A woman like her should be killed immediately. All kinds of voices filled his ears. Clearly, these 2 sentences of Lu Ruhai's made them extremely shocked. Lu Ruhai was secretly proud of himself when he saw that he had caused such a big commotion. He looked at Chu Luiyue arrogantly, wanting to see the panicked expression on her face. However, there was none. The woman still stood there quietly, as if she had turned a deaf ear to the words around her. Her ordinary face was calm. The way she looked at him was also very strange. It was as if she was sympathetic? Sympathetic. Lu Ruhai almost thought that he had seen wrongly. After being exposed in front of her, she would have a hard time in the coming days. How could she show such an expression at this time? At this moment, Jiang Hetian asked in a deep voice. Is what you said true? Lu Ruhai cupped his hands. I'm Lu Ruhai of Cave Heaven Cliff, the celestial physician of the Lin family. I can vouch on my reputation that what I said is true. On the way here he had heard Lin Tianfeng and his son discuss with Duguyu several times about helping Dugu Mabao find his biological father. How could it be false? Jiang Hetian was secretly happy, but he did not show it on his face. He suddenly looked at Chu Luiyue. Dugyu, do you have anything to say about this? Chu Luiwei really sympathized with Lu Ruhai. A ninth-grade celestial physician was useless from today onwards. Why did he have to provoke Dabao of all people? It was fine to say that she was already married, but to say that Dabao was her son. Chu Luiwei quickly glanced at Dugu Mabao and saw that his delicate little face had turned completely black. Seeing that he was about to lose his temper, Chu Luiwei gave him a reassuring look, then looked at Jiang Hetian and said firmly, "Of course." Because what he said was all lies. Lu Ruhai sneered. "Fake? Dugu, for the sake of glory and wealth, you don't even want to acknowledge your own child." The patriarch and the fourth young master can bear witness to this matter. From the very beginning, you came here to find the man who abandoned you and your son. Now you still want to deny it. Many people looked at Lin Tianfeng and his son. They were the ones who brought her here, so naturally, their words were the most trustworthy. Lin Tianfeng frowned. Although it was beyond his expectations that the Saint Prince would choose Dugu as his princess consort, he still hoped for the best for Dugu. After all, she was Ji Fei's benefactor. If he nodded now, wouldn't he be putting Dugu to death? Just as he was hesitating, Chu Luiwei spoke first. Patriarch Lin and the fourth young master will of course agree with what you said just now, because in their hearts, this is indeed the case. However, what if I say that from the very beginning, what I said was not true? Chu Luiwei's lips slowly curved into a sly smile. I said that I brought Dabao here to find someone. However, I have never personally admitted that Dabao and I are mother and son, and I have never admitted that the person we are looking for is his father. Patriarch Lin and the fourth young master can also bear witness to this. That's right. Lin Qifei pondered for a moment, then spoke with a serious expression. Miss Dugu has indeed never said these things herself. It's just my and father's speculation. A woman bringing a child to find someone, who else could she be looking for? In fact, it was reasonable for them to think this way. Lu Ruhai was stunned for a moment, then immediately clenched his teeth. If you say it's not, then it's not. What evidence do you have? Then what evidence do you have? Chu Luiwei immediately asked. Lu Ruhai was speechless. This matter had developed to this point, and it seemed to have become a dead knot. Everyone's eyes wandered back and forth between the few of them, not knowing who to believe. After a short silence, a voice came from the side. If Miss Dugu really has nothing to do with that child, why did she go through so much trouble to bring him from the outside world to the divine ruins world? Hearing this, Chu Luiwei looked in the direction of the voice. The one who spoke was Jiang Jiwan, who had just treated her wound. Her pretty and gentle face was now deathly pale, but it made her look even more delicate and pitiful, making her look even more pitiful and lovable. Also, since Miss Dugu is only a rank 7 warrior, then, how did she successfully pass through the door of the Divine Ruins world and come here? Her voice had returned to its usual calmness, as if she was not questioning, but simply asking a question. But these two questions hit the nail on the head. It was already very difficult for ordinary cultivators to break in from the outside world. Why did Dugu have to bring a child? How much trouble would that add? Not to mention, with her current realm, it was impossible for her to enter. Everything was full of doubts. Of course it's because I want it, Chu Luiwei said with a smile. Also, as for how I came in, of course, I came in with my own ability. Could it be that someone specially came to pick me up? Rong Xiu rubbed his nose. Yan Qing felt a chill down her spine and lowered her head. Uemo scratched his head in confusion. Was he scolding Master or Yan Qing? But he quickly thought it through. He was still scolding Master. Yan Qing was not qualified. Jiang Juan felt that Chu Luiwei was simply pestering endlessly. She might as well not have answered these two questions. Wasn't she just running away? Miss Dugu, please answer my question directly. If you can't prove your innocence, then we really have reason to suspect that this child is really yours. A woman with a child wants to be the princess consort? Is she dreaming? Chu Luiwei raised her chin. May I ask, in what way does Dabao look like me? Everyone subconsciously sized up the two of them. One had purple hair and purple eyes, while the other had black hair and black eyes. They were really worlds apart. Moreover, the child was extremely beautiful, while Duguyu, isn't it simple? He just looks like his father. Jiang Hetian pressed on. Duguyu, since you admit that you came to Yuntian Tower to look for someone, why don't you find that person now and confront him face to see who this child is? Chu Luiwei raised her eyebrows. Are you sure? Jiang Hetian sneered. Why, you don't dare? That's not it. Chu Luiwei rubbed her chin, then turned to Rong Xiu. Your Highness, they insist that this is your child. Why don't you come and identify it yourself? Digression, there was another slightly later, around 7 o'clock. Chapter 1082. The ethereal hall fell into a deathly silence. At this moment, the air seemed to have frozen, and even time seemed to have stopped. Everyone doubted whether they had heard wrongly. What did Duguyu say to the Son of God? This child is him. The person she is looking for is the Son of God. Rong Xiu coughed. If he didn't speak up now, that person would probably make a move. I haven't even gotten married yet, so how can I have a child? It was like a thunderclap. Everyone was stunned, and it took a long time for them to recover from their shock. He admitted it. Did he admit it? Wasn't His Highness saying that he was the man Duguyu was looking for? Her fiancé. Your Highness. Jiang Jiwan could no longer maintain the image of a noble lady. Her face was ghastly pale, and her eyes were filled with disbelief. Your Highness, do you know what you are saying? Of course I do. Rong Xiu's gaze turned a little colder as he glanced at her. On the other hand, Miss Jiang seems to have forgotten her own identity. Jiang Jiwan's heart clenched in pain, and her face was burning. She was so embarrassed that she wanted to find a hole to bury herself in. Seeing her in such a difficult position, Jiang Hetian couldn't help but speak up. Your Highness, what do you mean by this? Duguyu, the fiancé you spoke of previously is indeed I. Rong Xiu interrupted Jiang Hetian's words and spoke frankly. So, I can testify to everything she said earlier. As he spoke, he turned to look at the dumbfounded Lu Ruhai. May I know if I am qualified to be her witness? Lu Ruhai's face turned ghastly pale. How could this be? How could this be? Didn't they say that Duguyu's fiancé was just a lowly guard of the Yuntian Tower? How did he suddenly become the Son of God? But no matter how much he refused to believe it, he knew that this was the truth. His Highness said it himself, how could it be false? He then recalled the series of events that had happened after they had arrived. Regardless of whether it was Yan Qing's respectful and careful attitude, the seats in the first row, or the closeness of 36 respected elder Ming, all of this confirmed this matter. Previously, he only felt that it was strange, but now that he thought about it, everything seemed to have been foreshadowed. Lu Ruhai felt cold all over. He didn't need to think to know what kind of powerful figure he had offended. At this moment, he was filled with regret, and he finally understood why that woman was always so calm and composed. Not only did she have a backer, but it was also the most powerful backer in the entire Yuntian Tower. Lu Ruhai's lips trembled as his aged face trembled violently. However, he was unable to speak a complete sentence. Since the consort selection ceremony has ended and the results are out, then the position of consort belongs to Yuer. Wait. Before Rong Xiu could finish speaking, a deep and powerful voice suddenly came from outside the hall. Hearing this familiar voice, 36 respected elder Ming's smile suddenly froze as he looked at Rong Xiu. A dark light flashed in Rong Xiu's eyes. Everyone looked outside. Then, they saw a few figures flying in quickly from outside. Those few people were extremely fast. Before anyone could see their footsteps clearly, they had already arrived in the hall. The person in the lead had white hair and a thin face. He wore a gray robe, and the aura around him was obscure and powerful. As for the two people behind him, they weren't that weak either. However, they were in a hurry and looked travel-worn, as if they had rushed back from outside. After they entered, the pressure that came with them made the surrounding people subconsciously quiet down. Many people had a look of reverence in their eyes. When Jiang Hetian saw them, he immediately cupped his hands. Respected Elder Yu Jing. Respected Lord Qingshan. Respected Elder Shi Kai. Many people were secretly shocked. It turned out that these few people were also the respected elders of Yuntian Tower. Everyone bowed. The leader, Elder Yu Jing, waved his hands and looked straight at Rong Xiu as he said straightforwardly, "Don't worry. Your Highness, this Duguyu cannot be chosen as the princess consort." Rong Xiu's expression did not change. He even raised the corner of his lips slightly. "Respected elders, you have returned from a long journey. I will make the decision on the princess consort selection. You don't have to worry about it." Yu Jing's voice was cold. "Now that the patriarch is in seclusion, your highness is in charge of the Yuntian Tower. Everything should be decided by your highness. However, the princess consort selection is of great importance. Your highness, please listen to us." As he spoke, he looked at Chu Liwei and frowned. "How can an outsider be the princess consort?" Rong Xiu said lightly. "I met you when we were young and we were already engaged. However, because I was busy with the matters here, I didn't have time to bring her back. And this time, she won first place in the princess consort selection. She is the best candidate for the princess consort, both publicly and privately. What's more, I've already spoken. Are you all trying to make me go back on my word by objecting like this? Your Highness, you misunderstand. We are thinking for the future of your Highness and the entire Yuntian Tower." Yu Jing's attitude was very stubborn. "If your Highness really likes her, you can take her as the princess consort. This is already a great honor for her. However, she is really not qualified for the position of princess consort." Rong Xiu's thin lips curved slightly, and there seemed to be a stream of light in his deep eyes. He said word by word like a sage. "In this lifetime, I will only take one person as my wife. And this person can only be her." Chapter 1083. The man's deep and clear voice reverberated throughout the entire ethereal hall, clearly reaching everyone's ears. There was complete silence. Jiang Jiwan's already pale face turned even more miserable. Her body swayed and she nearly fell to the ground. Jiang Hetian hurriedly supported her. Seeing her sad and despondent appearance, he was angry and anxious. He couldn't help but raise his head and shout, "Your Highness, be careful with your words. Are you going to disregard all the tribes of the Yuntian Tower? How can an outsider be the consort?" As long as Rong Xiu still had the slightest bit of rationality left, he wouldn't say such words in public. Everyone, including themselves, had already decided a long time ago that the consort could only be chosen from the Immortal Water Mausoleum. Now that something like this had suddenly happened, what was going on? Where were they supposed to put their faces? Rong Xiu's expression didn't change at all, and his authority was unquestionable. "If I say she can, then she can. Your Highness." Elder Yu Jing clasped his fist with a cold expression. "Are you really going to be so obstinate?" Rong Xiu suddenly chuckled and his eyebrows shot up. "Over the years, I have been obstinate many times. Are you all still not used to it?" Elder Yu Jing choked. For a moment he didn't know what to say. Rong Xiu's words were definitely not an exaggeration. His identity was very special. Back then, when the clan head and the others found him, he was supposed to be executed. However, 36 revered Elder Ming had risked his life to save him. In addition, his talent and bloodline were simply too powerful, so he barely managed to survive. He had been in the Yuntian Tower for more than a decade. From the lowly bastard who was bullied by others to the current Holy Son, it was clear that he was a shrewd person. Now that the clan head was in seclusion, he was even more domineering than before. And now, even his consort was going to marry an outsider. Indeed, the blood of a lowly person flowed in his bones. However, Elder Yu Jing and the others didn't dare to say such words out loud. The Rong Xiu of today was no longer who he used to be. Just like this consort selection ceremony. It seemed lively, open, and fair, but in fact he had already chosen that woman. All of this was just a gimmick. It was all for the sake of justifying her ascension. He didn't even care about the gazes of others and openly revealed his intentions. Who could stop this? Your Highness, what you said makes sense. Miss Dugu has indeed passed the consort selection ceremony selection and became number 1. It is only natural for her to obtain the position of consort. Exalted Elder Qingchen, who was standing behind Exalted Elder Yu Jing, suddenly laughed and said amiably, "However, you know the rules of the Yuntian Tower. The princess consort had to be someone with the bloodline of the divine ruins world. Otherwise, even if we all agree, she won't be able to pass the sacrificial god temple's test, right?" Chu Liyue's eyebrows twitched slightly. The trial of the sacrificial god temple? She had to be someone with the bloodline of the divine ruins world? Just as she was pondering, Rong Xiu's indifferent and firm voice sounded again. In other words, if she can pass that test, you will all acknowledge her identity? Exalted Elder Qingchen nodded. Of course. Rong Xiu chuckled. Chu Liyue looked at Rong Xiu with a blank expression. Good. She didn't have the bloodline of the divine ruins world. Even if she had the Tianjing Yuan Meridian, she shouldn't be able to fool them on such an occasion, right? However, Rong Xiu didn't seem to see her doubt and worry. He strode down with his long legs. He was very tall, and his black brocade robe outlined his waist even more perfectly. His shoulders were broad, his waist was narrow, and his body was tall and slender. Every step he took was light and quick, but there was also an indescribable air of nobility about him. It was as if he had walked out of a landscape painting, noble and elegant, flirtatious and devilish. Chu Liyue stared at him, and for a moment, she was in a trance and subconsciously held her breath. The man in front of her was strange yet familiar. He always wore a white robe, gentle and clean, like a banished immortal. However, today he only changed into a black robe, but he seemed to be a completely different person. Decisive, cruel and cold. In the air, she could even smell a faint smell of blood. That was the aura of a person who wandered between life and death all year round, controlling countless lives. He was Prince Rong Xiu. He was also the Holy Son Rong Xiu. However, when she looked at his face, she felt that he was still him. Such a gentle look was only for her. He walked over and stretched out his hand. I'll go with you. He didn't call himself I. He said he would go with her. Countless people's eyes followed him, but in his eyes, there was only her. For a moment, Chu Liyue suddenly felt something surging in her heart. She held his hand, it was broad and warm. Good. Jiang Jiwan bit her lip. The smell of rust spread between her lips and teeth, but she didn't feel the slightest pain. At this moment, in her eyes, there were only the two people standing hand in hand. Everyone could see clearly that he took the initiative to reach out his hand first. In front of that woman, he wasn't the high and mighty Holy Son, he was just a man looking at the woman he loved, his eyes full of joy. He had never looked at her with such eyes. Jiang Hetian saw her expression, sighed in his heart, and comforted her. Ziyuan, don't worry, she is an outsider, and definitely can't pass the test of the sacrificial god temple. Not to mention others, even the ancestors of the Yuntian Tower wouldn't agree to let such a woman casually ascend to the position of princess. Jiang Jiwan pursed her lips. But she has many tricks up her sleeves. Who knows if she will still. If this Duguyu was really as ordinary as she looked, how could she have contracted two divine beasts? Even in the world of gods, she had never heard of anyone who could do so. Jiang Hetian harumphed coldly. She might be able to win these tests with some random tricks, but what kind of place was the sacrificial god temple? That was where the ancestral tablets of the Yuntian Tower's ancestors were enshrined. No matter how capable she was, could she possibly change her bloodline on the spot? Outsiders were born inferior to others. It was wishful thinking for her to be compared to the orthodox sects of the world of gods. Just wait and see. She'll return in low spirits in a while, and she'll fail completely. Jiang Hetian raised his chin. With Elder Yu Jing and the others around, the position of princess consort will still be yours. Jiang Jiwan nodded uneasily. Rong Xiu and Chu Luiyue walked out of the ethereal hall hand in hand and arrived at the square outside. Behind them, Elder Yu Jing and the others also walked out in a single file. The rest of the people in the hall also followed out curiously and stood around the square. Rong Xiu raised his chin and looked at the peak of the mountain. That's the sacrificial god temple. There's an infinite godly dial there. All you have to do is place your hand on it and infuse your origin power into it. The infinite godly dial will point to different numbers based on the strength of your bloodline. 1 is the weakest and 12 is the strongest. Chapter 1084. Chu Luiyue nodded in understanding. Then what level do I have to reach to be considered a success? Rong Xiu paused and explained. If the head of the Lin family comes, it's about 5. If the head of the Jiang family comes, it's 8. As long as you reach 5, it's considered a success. The Lin family of Cave Heaven Cliff was considered a third-rate family in the Divine Ruins world. The bloodline power of their family members was basically at this level. As for the Immortal Water Tomb, it was obviously a level higher. This was also why the Jiang family of the Immortal Water Tomb was so confident. Those that were lower than the Lin family of Cave Heaven Cliff were not ranked in the Divine Ruins world and had no right to control the Door realm. Therefore it had to be at least 5. Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows. What about you? Rong Xiu's thin lips curved slightly, his expression languid. 11. He was indeed abnormal. Chu Luiyue clicked her tongue. She had long guessed that Rong Xiu was very talented, and she was even more certain of it when she came here and found out about his true identity. So when she asked this question, she was already fully mentally prepared. Unfortunately, this man never gave others a chance to live. 11. This could be considered as the most perfect bloodline in the world. You really know how to find trouble for me. Chu Luiyue exhaled. This is going to be tough. Rong Xiu seemed to have guessed her thoughts, and a smile appeared in the corners of his eyes. You don't have to be the same as me. You just have to reach 5 and convince them. If it's only 5, I'm afraid they won't keep their mouths shut, right? Chu Luiyue chuckled and retorted. Besides, I want to stand by your side openly. Even if I can't be the same as you, I can't be too far off, right? Ha, naive. Jiang Hetian heard their conversation and couldn't help but snort coldly. It's extremely difficult for outsiders to summon the infinite divine sundial, let alone others. If you have time to daydream here, you might as well think about how to not embarrass yourself. Jiang Hetian spoke bluntly. The mausoleum of immortal water had a very high status. In addition, it had been under the care of the clan leader of the Yuntian Tower for the past few years. He had always been very arrogant and overbearing. Before, he had been polite to Rong Xiu and the others. But now, Rong Xiu had hurt his precious daughter's heart and had also damaged the reputation of the Mausoleum of Immortal Water. He was furious, and naturally he had no more scruples. When facing Chu Luiyue, they were full of contempt and disdain. As far as he was concerned, such an outsider didn't even have the qualifications for him to take a second look. When she was defeated and humiliated in front of so many people, he did not believe that Rong Xiu would still protect her until the end. Rong Xiu's eyes turned cold, and murderous intent surfaced in his eyes. However, Chu Luiyue suddenly took the initiative to speak first as she smiled. Thank you for your concern, Patriarch Jiang. I will definitely work hard and not let you down. As she spoke, she even shook Rong Xiu's hand and blinked. Her pair of black eyes sparkled brightly. I'll be going then. What was the point of saying so much to these people? Using strength to prove herself was the only way to shut their mouths. Of course, she could also flaunt her affection, but it was more of a supporting role. It was fine for her to use it occasionally, but she wasn't willing to do it too often. The purpose of this was to clarify her sovereignty, not to argue with those people. She didn't want to waste too much time on those people, so it was enough for her to show her sincerity. Seeing her sly and quick-witted appearance, the anger in Rong Xiu's heart instantly dissipated, and his noble eyes relaxed. All right. Rong Xiu waved his sleeves, and a golden streak of light flew out. The streak of light flew straight from the ethereal hall, forming a bridge that connected to the sacrificial god hall. Chu Luiwei leaped up, jumped onto the golden bridge, and went up. She actually went up. Isn't she afraid that she won't be able to detect the slightest bloodline and embarrass herself? Since things have already come to this, does she have a second choice? Indeed. Do you think it's that easy to become the consort of the Yuntian Tower? But she's an outsider. She'll only be courting death if she does that. Seeing Chu Luiwei's silhouette gradually disappearing into the distance, quite a few people began whispering among themselves. Most of them didn't think highly of her chances. Even though Chu Luiwei had summoned 2 divine beasts earlier, they still didn't think that she would be able to clear this trial. She was indeed powerful, but it was a pity that her birth couldn't be changed. She was born without a bloodline, and she wouldn't be able to do so in her entire life. Unless she made a breakthrough herself and became a god realm expert. Furthermore, even a half-god wouldn't do. She had to be a god realm expert. But how could it be that easy? Putting aside an outsider like her, there were countless cultivators in the divine ruins who were stuck at half-god realm for their entire lives, unable to advance any further. Even until their deaths, they were unable to take that step forward. Furthermore, she was only a rank 7 warrior now. If she wanted to summon the infinite divine sundial and her bloodline power test was at least 5 points, it was just a pipe dream. At this moment, Chu Luiwei naturally couldn't hear the discussions of the crowd below. Of course, even if she heard it, she wouldn't care. Everything else was fake. Strength was the real deal. Right now, the only question she was thinking about was, since Rong Xiu had agreed to let her come up, then he must be confident that she would succeed. But she didn't seem to have any bloodline power. Even if the previous Shangguan Yu's body had barely inherited a bit of Taizu's power, it shouldn't be enough, let alone now. About a quarter of an hour later, she finally arrived at the end of the Golden Bridge, the sacrificial god temple. Looking around, there was a magnificent black palace in front of her. There were several divine beasts carved on the ridge of the roof, giving off a heavy pressure. In the middle of the tightly shut black door, there was a huge totem engraved on it. It was the totem of the Yuntian Tower. Chu Luiwei only took a glance and felt the blood in her body surging, and the force seemed to have begun to riot. She quickly retracted her gaze. This sacrificial god temple really couldn't be underestimated. In front of the main hall, there was also a huge square, and the ground was all paved with black jade. Standing on it, she could see her own reflection. The surroundings of the sacrificial god temple and the square were strictly guarded by soldiers wearing black armor. The aura of these people were stronger than the soldiers Chu Luiwei had seen before. When Chu Luiwei came up, they didn't look at her and still stood firmly in their positions. Chu Luiwei secretly exclaimed. Those who could stay in the sacrificial god temple were indeed not ordinary. Moreover, such well-trained soldiers would indeed be a great fighting force. Chu Luiwei lightly jumped down. At this moment, she was standing opposite the main hall, right in front of the square. Countless pairs of eyes converged on her body. The surroundings were quiet. Chu Luiwei took a deep breath and closed her eyes. In the next moment, the aura around her body soared. Buzz. A buzzing sound suddenly sounded. Immediately, the void shook violently. A huge golden sundial slowly appeared. Digression, not feeling well, continue at 6 p.m. Chapter 1085. It was already late at night, and the sky was dark. However, the lanterns on the mountain lit up half of the mountain peak. However, the moment the everlasting divine dial appeared, its bright light illuminated the surroundings, making it seem as though it was daytime. Chu Luiwei's figure was also clearly illuminated. She stood at the peak of the mountain with her back straight. The night breeze blew her clothes, and her hair danced in the wind. It was as though she was about to ascend to the heavens. The everlasting divine dial was faintly golden in color, and there were 12 numbers on it. At this moment, there was a golden pointer pointing to the number 12 at the very top. That was the default position before the test started. It was so big that when Chu Luiwei stood in front of it, she wasn't even half the size of the golden pointer. Thus, even though the crowd from the ethereal hall was a distance away, they were still able to see it clearly. However, at this moment, they were even more shocked. How did she manage to summon the everlasting divine dial so quickly? Logically speaking, an ordinary person would need around 7 to 8 minutes to awaken the everlasting divine dial. But this time, she seemed to have only stood there for a short while before the everlasting divine dial appeared. Even compared to some of the people from the Yuntian Tower, this speed is still considered fast. Isn't it said that the faster one can summon the everlasting divine dial, the stronger their bloodline will be? Back then, when His Highness ascended the mountain peak for the first time, he didn't summon the everlasting divine dial on his own accord. Later on, he indeed managed to achieve 11. It was precisely because of this that Rong Xiu was able to preserve his life when he returned. His bloodline talent was his greatest trump card. Later on, he didn't let down everyone's expectations. He made breakthroughs swiftly, and in the end, he even obtained the position of the sage. His Highness is a one-in-a-million genius. How can ordinary people compare to him? The results aren't out yet. Let's talk about it after she passes that test. Everyone had different expressions and they had different opinions. However, there were still some piercing voices that sounded from time to time. 36 esteemed Elder Ming chuckled. With his hands behind his back, he spoke leisurely. I've been in the Yuntian Tower for hundreds of years, and I've seen this scene thousands of times. With this speed, it was basically a sure win. As he spoke, he winked at Rong Xiu. Your Highness's foresight is as good as always. Rong Xiu nodded happily. Of course. Jiang Ziyuan's heart ached as she listened to the duo's words, which were all praising Chu Luiyue. She clenched her teeth in silence. Back then, she had summoned the infinite divine dial only slightly faster than this. And her level was already a rare 9. If there were no accidents, Duguyu should be able to get a 6. If he was lucky, a 7 was not impossible. This time, Duguyu was really going to succeed. Looking at the infinite divine dial that appeared in front of her, Chu Luiyue blinked and stared at it for a while. For some reason, she could feel the powerful pressure coming from it, but she did not feel uncomfortable. This thing did not seem to be as scary as they had described it to be. Chu Luiyue walked forward and stood a step away from the infinite divine dial. Then, she took a deep breath and raised her arm. Her palm slowly covered the infinite divine dial. It was cold to the touch, as if it was made of jade. A faint golden light flickered in the surroundings, making her palm look much clearer. Then, she held her breath and concentrated. A surge of force gushed out from her danton and poured into her palm. There was no reaction from the infinite divine dial. Chu Luiyue was stunned for a moment, then increased her strength. But this time, the everlasting divine dial was still silent. I told you she can't do it. An outsider is an outsider after all. Even if she forcefully summoned the infinite divine dial, it would be useless. Jiang Hetian sneered. Jiang Jiwan's anxious heart also calmed down a lot. As long as Duguyu was defeated in front of everyone, then she would no longer have the face to stay in the Yuntian Tower. Time became extremely unbearable at this moment. Countless pairs of eyes stared at the figure on the mountain peak. Some were waiting for her to succeed and soar into the sky. Some were waiting for her to fail and disappear in loneliness. I wonder if Miss Dugu can do it, Lin Tianfeng, who was standing in a remote corner, muttered to himself. By the side, Dugu Mabao narrowed his demonic eyes. If she can't, then this world. At this point, his voice stopped abruptly. Lin Tianfeng lowered his head and looked at him strangely. He was only a child of 3 or 4 years old, but for some reason, he had an inexplicable respect for Dugu Mabao. After knowing that he was not Duguyu's child, this feeling had only increased. Lin Tianfeng was also a wily old fox. He did not believe that Duguyu had nothing better to do than bring this child all the way from the outer realm to the divine ruins world. Thinking back to the scene of this child smashing the table and the thick killing intent emanating from him, Lin Tianfeng did not dare to slight him. You mean she can succeed? Lin Tianfeng asked cautiously. However, Dugu Mabao didn't even give him an extra glance. His small face was expressionless, clearly unwilling to say anything more. Lin Tianfeng coughed awkwardly. Father, don't worry. Miss Dugu can definitely succeed. Lin Qifei suddenly spoke. How can you be so sure? Lin Tianfeng asked. Lin Qifei only smiled and did not speak. His clear eyes seemed to reflect the bright golden light of the mountain peak. She could cure his illness as an 8th-rank celestial physician. What else was impossible? Chu Luiyue frowned. Strange. Logically speaking, there should be no problem. After all, the force in her body was quite strong. Why was the infinite divine dial not reacting at all? She made up her mind and fiercely mobilized the force in her danton. In an instant, the water droplet seemed to be affected by something and slowly started to spin. Buzz. The infinite divine dial shone brightly. Following the deafening buzzing sound, the golden needle suddenly moved. Click. The needle moved to the 1 position. The crisp sound of the needle moving instantly reverberated between heaven and earth. Everyone who was watching from below was also shocked. It moved. The infinite divine dial moved. She actually has the bloodline power of a god-level expert in her body? I wonder how many points she can reach. Chu Luiyue raised her head to look at the needle and let out a sigh of relief. Then, she allowed the force in her body to flow into her palm. At the same time, the needle on the infinite divine dial quickly moved to the 2 position. Then, it quickly jumped to the 3 position. Gasps could be heard coming from the crowd. How can it be so fast? Chapter 1086. There were a total of 12 numbers on the infinite divine dial. Each number represented a different level of bloodline talent. The infinite divine dial was activated the moment it sensed the bloodline power. Every step the needle took required the support of a stronger bloodline power. Those with weak bloodline power would struggle to reach 2 or 3, which would basically be the end of the trial. Those who were slightly stronger would reach 4 or 5. It was worth mentioning that the further one went, the greater the difference in bloodline power represented by these numbers. Therefore, many people could not continue after a few steps, because their bloodline power was not enough to make the needle move to the next number. But now, Dugu had jumped to 3 in the blink of an eye. They did not even have time to react. However, just as everyone was in shock, the needle on the infinite divine dial had jumped forward again. Many people held their breaths in shock as they stared unblinkingly at the scene on the mountain peak, afraid that they would miss something. As long as she took another step, she would pass the final test. Then, the position of princess consort would be at her fingertips. At this moment, there were many more people who were more nervous than Chu Luiyue. Jiang Hetian and the rest were already stunned by the scene before them. Just a moment ago, they thought that Dugu would fail, but who knew that in the blink of an eye, the needle of the infinite divine dial had already pointed to 4. Jiang Jiwan clenched his sleeves. No way, so many people had been trapped here before, she should not be an exception. How could an outsider have any bloodline power to speak of? Chu Luiyue looked up. The light on the infinite divine dial seemed to be getting stronger as the needle moved. At this moment, half of her hand was almost covered by that dazzling golden light. As the water droplet in her dantian spun, the power that flowed into her palm was also increasing. Chu Luiyue blinked her eyes when she saw the number 4 written on it. Didn't they say that reaching 5 meant passing? She thought it would be difficult, but she had already reached this step without much effort. Were they serious about what they said before, or were they just trying to scare her? If the people below knew what Chu Luiyue was thinking, they would probably vomit blood. Who would use this kind of thing to scare you? Who can you blame for being a pervert? Just as these thoughts flashed through Chu Luiyue's mind, the needle moved forward again. The needle had reached 5. Halfway up the mountain, everyone was dead silent. The mountain breeze at night carried a hint of coldness that poured into one's neck, almost chilling one's heart. Jiang Jiwan shuddered. Her face was pale, and she bit her lips until they bled. It was as if a basin of ice water was poured over his head, chilling him to the bone. Dugu actually succeeded so easily? Ziyuan? It took her a while to react before she heard Jiang Hetian calling her from the side. Jiang Hetian's expression was also complicated. Ziyun, she might have used some tricks to do it. Don't take it to heart. You see, the matter of her contracting 2 divine beasts was still strange. Who knew that this time, Dad? Jiang Zhuan interrupted him and twitched the corner of her mouth without a smile. If it was anything else, it would be fine, but that's the infinite divine dial. Who could play tricks on it? If Duguyu could do this, then everyone had to admit it. Jiang Hetian choked and didn't know what to say for a moment. He could only keep his mouth shut and pray in his heart for Duguyu to stop and not continue. The needle moved to the middle position. It officially pointed to the 6. Chu Luiyue found that the interval between each jump was slightly longer than before. At this time, of course, she didn't know that this speed was far beyond the expectations of the people below. When the needle moved to the bottom, Chu Luiyue stood closer and saw it more clearly. The golden needle was emitting a lustrous glow. It was sacred and powerful. There were intricate and exquisite patterns carved on it. Countless lines intersected, outlining a strange pattern. It looked like some kind of cloud pattern, but it was much more intricate and complicated. Just by looking at the patterns on it, Chu Luiyue seemed to feel a majestic and ancient aura coming at her. At the same time, the water droplet in her dantian seemed to be summoned by something, and the 7 magnificent patterns rippled with the water droplet. The force surged. The needle passed the middle position and continued to jump forward. In the blink of an eye, it had turned to the shocking 7. Impossible, impossible. At this time, Elder Yu Jing and the others finally couldn't hold back and changed their expressions. If it was said that Duguyu could barely pass, they could accept it. But now, everything clearly showed that her bloodline talent was very strong. In the whole Yuntian Tower, to be able to achieve this result, she was definitely a top genius. It's strange that she can summon the infinite divine dial. In my opinion, she might not be an outsider. As for her true identity, I'm afraid we'll have to investigate carefully. Elder Qingchen stroked his beard and said meaningfully, "Not an outsider? Then who would she be? Could it be that she's really from a clan in the Divine Ruins world?" Elder Yu Jing asked doubtfully, then why didn't she directly reveal her true identity and instead pretended to be an outsider? Ordinary people in the Divine Ruins world wouldn't be interested in doing such a thing and lowering their status for no reason. Let's just wait and see. Anyway, when the infinite divine dial finally stops, her bloodline totem will appear. Elder Qingchen said calmly, "When the time comes, everything will be known." When the needle pointed to 7, the strange feeling in Chu Luiyue's heart grew stronger. Those people said that it was very difficult, but she didn't seem to feel anything. Logically speaking, this result should be very good, right? Even if she stopped here, as long as she reached this number, it would be enough for her to take the position of princess consort. But she seemed to be able to continue. Chu Luiyue's heart was tangled for a while. While he was lost in thought, the needle jumped again to the 8th position. At this time, the bloodline talent she displayed was the same as Jiang Hetian's. At this time, everyone had quieted down. For some reason, looking at the figure on the top of the mountain and the huge, shining, infinite divine dial, Jiang Jiwan's heart suddenly trembled. If this continued, then wouldn't Duguyu and her click? The huge needle didn't have any intention of stopping and continued to jump. Digression, my whole day was ruined by a mouthful of chili. I'll struggle for a while. There's another one around 7. Chapter 1087. Jiang Jiwan's vision turned black, and she almost fainted. The rest of the people were speechless as they looked at this scene and were at a loss of what to do. I knew this girl could do it. 36 respected Elder Ming's face was full of smiles, and he simply couldn't close his mouth. That's 9. Just based on this result, she's already stronger than many people. Right, Yu Jing, what did you say just now? You said that Yu is an outsider and not worthy of the position of princess consort? 36 respected Elder Ming dug his ears. Respected Elder Yu Jing's expression was extremely ugly. He didn't expect Duguyu to really have such capabilities. Now, no matter what, she was firmly in the position of princess consort. 36 respected Elder Ming was very happy when he saw that these few people were refuted until they couldn't say anything. He then slowly looked towards Rong Xiu. Your Highness, why aren't you going to fetch the girl down personally? Rong Xiu narrowed his eyes slightly, and there were waves in his eyes. There's no hurry now. What? 36 respected Elder Ming was stunned. He blinked his eyes and then gasped. You mean, she can still continue to break through? Almost no one believed that Chu Luiwei could still continue. In the entire Yuntian Tower, those who could reach 9 were already very rare. After so many years, including Jiang Jiwan, there were less than 5 of them. There was no one who could go any higher. Oh, that wasn't right either. Rong Xiu, the saint, was the only one who had reached a higher level. Moreover, he had directly skipped 10 and reached 11. He was undoubtedly the top genius in the Yuntian Tower for thousands of years. Other than him, the others were at most 9. Therefore, everyone subconsciously thought that Chu Luiwei should have ended after reaching this number. But at this moment, Rong Xiu and 36 respected Elder Ming's words suddenly woke them up. Many people looked up. Someone suddenly yelled. Her bloodline totem hasn't appeared yet. Yes. The bloodline totem would only appear after the end of the level evaluation. But now, the infinite divine dial that was emanating golden light was as clean as before. Everything clearly indicated that her bloodline test was not over yet. Chu Luiwei could clearly feel the origin power surging wildly in his palm. Power surged around her body, causing her clothes to flutter. At this moment, although she couldn't hear the various discussions and exclamations below, she was very clear in her heart that she should have reached an extremely crucial juncture. 9. His rank was even higher than Jiang Hetian's. If she were to be taken out, she would definitely be qualified to be a princess consort. She was actually thinking about another thing now. How did she make the needle tick? Could it be that she also had that so-called bloodline power in her body? But why didn't she know about it? Moreover, she was indeed curious to see what level she could reach. Thinking of this, she pursed her lips and poured in another stream of force. Boom! A bright light suddenly erupted from the infinite divine dial. The light was so dazzling that Chu Luiwei instinctively raised her other hand to cover her eyes. However, at this moment, a faint sound came from the everlasting divine dial. Chu Luiwei felt strange and forced her eyes open to take a look. When she saw the scene in front of her clearly, she was instantly stunned. Because the patterns on the infinite divine dial's needle had suddenly come to life. Streaks of light flew out and attached themselves to the center of the everlasting divine dial. They intersected with each other, as if forming some kind of pattern. At the same time, a familiar sound came, and the needle moved to 10. Looking at the pattern that suddenly appeared in front of her, Chu Luiwei was stunned at first, but then she recognized that it was the strange blood-colored rune that had appeared in her palm previously. But at this moment, it had yet to completely converge, and the surrounding golden light was shining, making it extremely difficult to see clearly. She suddenly remembered what Taizu had said previously. This rune that had inexplicably appeared in her body was actually a totem. But this should be used to test a person's bloodline talent, and she had nothing to do with this totem. Logically speaking, it shouldn't have appeared. That's Yu's bloodline totem? 36 respected Elder Ming was still in deep shock, and when he saw the pattern that gradually appeared under the bright light, he couldn't help but exclaim. He suddenly looked at Rong Xiu. That girl was indeed an outsider, and he was very clear about this. But now, what exactly was going on? Rong Xiu stood with his hands behind his back, and his eyebrows moved slightly. A streak of golden light, like a flame, flashed across his deep eyes. Looking at the totem that was gradually perfecting, Chu Luiwei suddenly felt a trace of uneasiness in her heart. This was the biggest secret hidden in her body. Even though she still didn't know the origin of this totem, if it was seen by others, this was the divine ruins world. Thinking of this, Chu Luiwei made a prompt decision. She started to rapidly withdraw her force. But it was easy to release this surging majestic force, but it was difficult to withdraw it again. Thus, the needle continued to move at a slow but steady speed towards the next number. At the same time, the totem on the infinite divine dial was also becoming more and more complete. A faint, vast aura spread out from it. Chu Liyue clenched her teeth and withdrew the rest of her force. Both sides were in a deadlock. The needle started to shake violently. Just at this moment, under the bright golden light, a powerful aura suddenly surged out. It appeared extremely quickly. It directly and straightforwardly wrapped around the tip of the needle. Then, that ball of light suddenly dispersed. The needle finally stopped shaking and steadily stopped at the 11 position. A bit of black light quietly dissipated. Chapter 1088. Between heaven and earth, everything was dark. Only the everlasting divine dial shone brightly, divine and dazzling. A gentle breeze blew, and Chu Liyue's sleeves fluttered. As she watched the incomplete pattern on the infinite divine dial disappear with a loud bang, the stone in her heart finally fell to the ground. Whew! Thank goodness! Thank goodness! She managed to stop it at the very last moment. Chu Liyue rejoiced inwardly. Just a little more, and the needle would have reached 12. It was fortunate that she managed to save it in time. If the crowd below knew what she was thinking, they would probably vomit blood. Everyone was fighting to make the needle move 2 more times, but she was afraid that it would continue to move, so she stopped it. Chu Liyue retracted her hand. The light on the infinite divine dial gradually dimmed. Then, under countless shocked gazes, the infinite divine dial gradually disappeared into the void. At the top of the mountain, only the light of the lantern illuminated the woman's figure. Straight, slender, and graceful. She turned around and leaped onto the bridge formed by the golden light. Her footsteps were elegant, and her figure was light. In the blink of an eye, she was back in the ethereal hall. She jumped down from the bridge. Rong Xiu waved his sleeves, and the golden light dissipated into countless stars. In the darkness, the woman seemed to have walked out of the endless light. She walked up to Rong Xiu and smiled. "How is it? Are you satisfied with this result?" Rong Xiu looked at her with deep eyes. His thin lips curled up slightly as he smiled. "Yuer is always the best." Chu Liyue's eyes curved into crescents, but she soon realized that the surroundings were completely silent. She was stunned for a moment. She looked at the crowd and blinked her eyes in confusion, only to see them looking at her with shocked expressions. Were they stunned by that 11? Chu Liyue pondered. However, at this moment, Lin Dunfeng suddenly muttered, "That's right. Miss Dugu, your face." Chu Liyue's heart skipped a beat, and she immediately touched her face. Smooth and delicate. It was her own face. Chu Liyue widened her eyes slightly and looked at Rong Xiu, only to see Rong Xiu holding back his laughter and saying gently, "Don't you feel uncomfortable wearing that mask?" As expected, the mask had fallen off. What Chu Liyue didn't know was that when the needle of the everlasting divine dial pointed to 10, the mask on her face had already silently disappeared. It was just that she had placed all her attention on the everlasting divine dial at that time, so she didn't notice this. Under such circumstances, Chu Liyue suddenly dropped his mask. For a moment, he felt a little awkward. Cough. Chu Liyue coughed to cover it up. It's all right. During this period of time, she had been showing her face to others, so she had gotten used to it. Rong Xiu reached out and tidied up her messy hair that was blown by the mountain wind. His actions were rare and gentle. He looked at her as if he was looking at a rare treasure and treated her with extreme care and care. After a short moment of silence, the crowd finally broke out into whispers. "So this is Duguyu's true appearance. Otherworldly and elegant. Truly a beauty capable of toppling cities. I originally thought that Miss Jiang was already beautiful enough, but compared to her, Miss Jiang seems to have instantly become much duller. With such an appearance, no wonder His Highness the Holy Sun is so fond of her. Furthermore, her bloodline talent is also so high." After regaining their senses, Many people exclaimed. Jiang Juan stared blankly at the two people standing side by side not far away. When she saw that Duguyu's bloodline had surpassed hers, her heart had already turned cold. At that time, the only consolation she could give herself was that although Duguyu was outstanding in other aspects, she had an ordinary face. At least in this aspect, she had won against Duguyu. But now, she knew that she was gravely mistaken. Duguyu. So this is what she looks like. She was wearing an ordinary red dress, and her hair was tied up simply. She did not wear any makeup, but she seemed to be more beautiful than the myriad of sceneries in the world. When she stood there, everything around her seemed to be overshadowed in an instant. Countless golden light spots dissipated behind her, illuminating her snow-white jade-like face. A pair of jade-like eyes seemed to ripple like water, and countless stars seemed to be hidden in them. She smiled, and her eyes curved into crescents. This was probably what it meant to be a beauty capable of toppling countries. Although she did not want to admit it, Jiang Jiwan knew that compared to her, she was indeed inferior. Since young, she had been the most outstanding in all aspects. Everything was the best. This was the first time she had been so thoroughly defeated by another girl. This blow came so quickly that she was a little dazed for a moment. For a moment, she even felt a bit of regret. She should not have come. From the beginning to the end, this banquet was just specially organized by Rong Xiu for her. He had put in so much effort for her, and he had done everything he could for her. Even though he knew that there would be countless objections if he allowed this girl to become the consort, he still did it. As for her, from the beginning to the end, he had not even spared her a single glance. She was nothing more than a joke. Rong Xiu helped Chu Luwe tidy up her hair and clothes, and his gaze lingered on her face for a moment. In truth, it had been a long time since he last saw her face. If not for the fact that they were still in the ethereal hall, and there were still people around, with such thoughts in mind, Rong Xiu wanted to resolve this matter as soon as possible. He turned around to look at Yu Jing and the others. Now, the consort position should belong to Yuer, right? Yu Jing and the others glanced at one another. Initially, they had rushed back to stop Rong Xiu, and the reason and excuse they came up with were reasonable. But who knew that Duguyu would actually pass all of them? It would be bad if they were to go back on their words now. I didn't expect Miss Dugu to have such a top-notch bloodline talent as well. I apologize for my ignorance earlier. If we have offended you in any way, please forgive us, Miss Dugu. Elder Jingchen was the first to react. After recovering from his shock, he quickly adjusted his state of mind and spoke with an amiable expression. It's just that, for some reason, the bloodline totem on the infinite divine dial didn't display its full strength. Given that Miss Dugu possesses such a powerful bloodline talent, I believe that her clan must be extremely powerful as well, right? May I know, which clan do you belong to? Hearing those words, everyone turned to look at Chu Luiwe. This was also what they were curious about. Chu Luiwe blinked her eyes and smiled. I'm just an ordinary clan outside the ethereal hall. It's not worth mentioning. Miss Dugu, are you still unwilling to reveal your identity at this point? If you aren't from a clan in the world of gods, it's impossible for the infinite divine dial to display such a level. Elder Yu Jing said impatiently. In his opinion, Chu Luiwe was just refusing to admit it, so there was no point in doing so. I forgot to introduce you. Rong Xiu suddenly spoke up. This is Ai's fiancé in the Empire of Glory Dawn, as well as the future consort of the Yuntian Tower, Shanghai Yu. Chapter 1089. Many people in the Yuntian Tower in the Empire of Yaochen had heard of this place. This was because Rong Xiu's mother had secretly married the emperor of the Empire of Yaochen. Everyone in the Yuntian Tower knew that he was the seventh prince of the Empire of Yaochen. These things had already spread like wildfire when they found Rong Xiu. Almost everyone knew about it. It was also because of this that Rong Xiu had always been regarded as a disgrace to the clan. If not for the fact that the infinite divine dial had automatically appeared in front of the sacrificial god temple and detected his astonishing talent and bloodline, he might have already been killed in front of all the ancestral tablets of the Yun Tianke sect. Over the years, as Rong Xiu's cultivation improved, his authority in the Yuntian Tower also increased. Gradually, everyone stopped mentioning this matter. This time, it was Rong Xiu's first time mentioning it. His goal was self-evident, to secure the position of Chu Liyue's princess consort. Elder Yu Jingzuan and the others were shocked at first. Then, they looked at each other and frowned. According to His Highness, this Dugu, no, this Shangguan Yu really had an ordinary background? But how could they explain the infinite divine dial's reaction? There had never been such a situation before. Your Highness, Miss Shangguan is an outsider, but she was tested to be ranked 11 and has an extremely powerful bloodline talent. It's really strange. From a certain perspective, I can be considered an outsider, but didn't I also test to be ranked 11? You revered elders have repeatedly brought up this point. Could it be that you also have the same attitude towards this lord's identity? Rong Xiu interrupted Elder Yu Jingzuan's words and said calmly, I wouldn't dare. Elder Yu Jingzuan's heart skipped a beat, and he immediately denied it. Even if that was what they were thinking, how could they say it out loud? Besides, Rong Xiu, an outsider, had the best bloodline talent of the Yuntian Tower in the past thousands of years. They had no choice but to accept this. 36 revered Elder Ming smiled and said, Little Yu from today onwards, you are the Holy Sun's princess consort. Honored Elder Yu Jing wanted to say something but hesitated. Honored Elder Qing Chen gave him a meaningful glance. 36 revered Elder Ming had a noble status and was the most senior among the revered elders. Even if revered Elder Tong Chuan was here, he would have to give him some face. What about the others? As soon as he opened his mouth, the people around him were left with no room for rebuttal. They had made it clear that they were going to do this today. Whoever disagreed would be publicly going against the saint and 36 revered Elder Ming. He really couldn't act rashly. Elder Yu Jingzuan took a deep breath and swallowed the rest of his words. Elder Pure Dust was able to control his expression quite well. He bowed slightly. Greetings, Your Highness. Seeing that he was already like this, honored Elder Yu Jing and honored Elder Shirkayan could only follow. Greetings, Your Highness. The people around them were still a little stunned. It's settled just like that? Even the revered elders have publicly acknowledged this person's identity? Then, congratulations to His Highness and Your Highness. A voice suddenly came from the quiet crowd. It was Lin Qifei who took a step forward and bowed first. This voice finally caused everyone to react. Almost everyone spoke in unison and bowed respectfully. Congratulations to His Highness and Your Highness. Chu Liyue looked at Rong Xiu. Just like that, it's settled? It seemed a little too simple? Rong Xiu raised his sword-like eyebrows slightly, chuckled softly, and suddenly held her hand. Chu Liyue wore an ancient universe ring on her hand. He gently brushed his fingertips over it. The upper layers suddenly faded, and a dazzling golden light shone brightly. Only then did Chu Liyue see that the Yuntian Tower's totem was carved on the ring. She was slightly stunned and suddenly understood something. The holy ring? 36 revered Elder Ming stood nearby and saw the ring on her hand at a glance. He couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. When the crowd heard this, they all revealed a look of shock. The holy ring was actually on her hand? Rong Xiu explained. The holy ring is the status symbol of the Yuntian Tower's holy sun. It is also a keepsake given to the concubines of the past. Chu Liyue was stunned. So, you gave it to me so early? Rong Xiu chuckled softly. His eyes were gentle, but there was a noble and domineering aura that couldn't be disobeyed. It's yours anyway. Why should it be early or late? Jiang Ji1 turned and left. Jiang Hetian quickly chased after her. Yuan? After a few steps, he suddenly stopped and looked back at Rong Xiu and Chu Liyue. His expression was extremely complicated. It seemed like he was angry, but also seemed to be resentful. His Highness treats Miss Shangguan very well. It turns out that my immortal water tomb is not worthy of her. I will take my leave now. I hope that the two of you will also be treated well by the Patriarch in the future. Grow old together. Who is he using the Patriarch to threaten? Rong Xiu's lips curved up into an elegant smile. Patriarch Jiang, You don't have to worry about it. Thank you for your blessing. Jiang Heyan was so angry that he swung his sleeve and left. The remaining people of the immortal water tomb also hurriedly bowed and left. Many people secretly exchanged glances. The concubine position was taken by Sheng Guanyu. The immortal water tomb wouldn't let it go so easily, especially since Jiang Jiwan was the patriarch's favorite concubine candidate. There would be more trouble in the future. However, Rong Xiu didn't seem to care about this. He glanced at the sky. It's getting late. Everyone should disperse. The wedding day will be decided later. I hope that everyone will come again at that time. After speaking, he looked at Chu Liwei. It's been a long journey. Do you want to rest now? Chu Liwei paused and smiled. But I haven't seen your highness for a long time. I miss you. I wonder if your highness has the time to catch up with me? Rong Xiu's eyebrows twitched slightly. Everything is up to you. Sacrificial God Temple. The Holy Sun's bedroom. Yan Qing and Umo were guarding outside the main hall. After a day and night of work, the two of them were actually very tired. But they didn't feel sleepy at all. Instead, they were especially alert and focused on guarding. From time to time, they would glance inside, afraid that something would happen. Even though he couldn't see or hear anything from where he was standing, he couldn't see or hear anything. After waiting for a while, Umo finally couldn't help but poke Yan Qing and ask in a low voice, "Hey, it's been so long. Why hasn't there been any movement inside?" He originally thought that the concubine would at least make a scene with his highness. After being kept in the dark for so long, who wouldn't be angry? Could it be that the concubine has finally been moved by his highness's good intentions? So, Yan Qing was speechless and looked at him in disdain. If you don't need your brain, you can donate it. Umo was immediately unhappy. Hey, why are you scolding me? Aren't I just thinking for his highness and the concubine? Yan Qing turned around to take a look. You should eat more vegetarian food and pray to Buddha to accumulate merit for your master. Chapter 1090. Inside the room. Chu Liwei and Rong Xiu sat facing each other. It was so quiet that even the air seemed to have frozen. There was only a subtle flow of air flowing back and forth between the two of them. Both of them had been silent since they came in. Chu Liwei crossed her arms and looked up and down at the incomparably noble His Highness, the Holy Sun. Rong Xiu, on the other hand, was holding a cup of tea in one hand, allowing the newly appointed princess consort to repeatedly examine him. In comparison, he was actually more at ease. After a while, Chu Liwei finally moved forward and put her hands on the table. Her beautiful eyes were half squinted, with a hint of danger. Your Highness, at this time, you still have the leisure to be so elegant? Drink tea? Rong Xiu took a sip of tea and slowly looked up. His eyes were full of ease. There was a hint of a smile in the corner of his eyes. After going through so much trouble to choose my favorite princess consort, I have already restrained myself by not celebrating for 3 days and 3 nights. Can't I have a cup of tea and be happy? Chu Liwei was speechless. Whether this man was in white or black, Prince Li or the Holy Sun, they were all black-hearted. His skin was really thicker than the city walls. For a moment, Chu Liwei didn't know how to refute him. She took a deep breath and kept saying in her heart, "After all, he's my man. I can't kill him, I can't kill him." She leaned back in her chair again and sneered. "Your Highness, if I didn't come here myself this time, how long were you planning to hide your identity?" Rong Xiu thought about it carefully and still chose to defend himself. "Previously, when we were in Tianling, I actually mentioned it to you, but I didn't go into detail. It shouldn't be considered deliberately hiding it, right? It would have been better if he didn't mention this, but once he did, Chu Liwei was furious. That counts as mentioning it? You didn't say that your mother's clan was actually a first-rate clan in the Divine Ruins world, Yuntian Tower. This wasn't an ordinary family background, yet he didn't mention it from the beginning to the end." Rong Xiu pondered for a moment, but his tone and expression were much more serious. "At that time, it wasn't very appropriate to tell you these things. Furthermore, There were still some minor issues at the Yuntian Tower that had yet to be resolved. So I originally planned to wait for you to break through to the 9th stage before telling you in detail. I didn't expect. He smiled, and in an instant all the colors in the world were taken away. His eyes were deep, as if they could make people unconsciously sink into them, unable to extricate themselves. It's just that I didn't expect you to break through so quickly, and, furthermore, even the totem had awakened. This was much faster than he had expected. It should have been when she broke through to the 7th rank warrior and went through the Ascension Tribulation, which triggered all these. Chu Luiwei didn't say anything. In fact, from everything that had happened today, she could also see that Rong Xiu's situation at the Yuntian Tower was indeed somewhat dangerous. Not to mention those people at the Immortal Water Tomb, just those few revered elders didn't seem to be on his side. If it weren't for 36 revered Elder Ming who could restrain them, she was afraid. Then let's forget about this matter for now. Now, let me ask you something else. You must answer honestly. Chu Luiwei said firmly. Rong Xiu fumbled with the teacup, the bitter and slightly spicy taste of ginger tea still lingering between his lips and teeth. He nodded. Chu Luiwei was silent for a moment and unconsciously sat up straight. She looked into the eyes of the man opposite her and said word by word, "Who exactly am I?" Digression, continue at 6 p.m. Chapter 1091. There was complete silence. Rong Xiu paused for a moment and looked up at Chu Luiwei. "You're Shangguan Yu, and also Chu Luiwei." Chu Luiwei frowned. "You know that's not what I'm asking." "But these two are indeed your identities." Rong Xiu replied. "You should be the one who knows who you are the best." Chu Luiwei felt suffocated. She paused. "Rong Xiu, I've already remembered some things. You were the one who played chess with me in the octagonal pavilion. You were the one who deliberately drank my ginger tea. You were also the one who made a lifelong promise with me." Chu Luiwei looked at him. Every time she said a word, the scene of the past would appear in her mind. Most of it was fragmented and blurry, but these few fragments were very clear. "You knew that I lost part of my memory a long time ago, but you never took the initiative to mention it to me. And in the past that disappeared, the only thing I remember was you. This was enough to explain too many things. We clearly knew each other a long time ago. I even said that I was going to go back and announce our marriage to Imperial Father. But what happened after that?" She didn't remember where they first met, and she didn't know what happened after that promise. After she returned to the Tianling dynasty, she was actually engaged to Jiang Yuqing, and so many things happened after that. She used to think that she liked Jiang Yuqing, but later she met Rong Xiu. She realized that she didn't like him. At most, she didn't hate him based on various factors. When she learned that Jiang Yuqing and Shangguan Wan had teamed up, she was more angry and heartbroken at being betrayed by someone she trusted. Thinking about it carefully, she didn't seem to care that much about the fact that they were secretly together. It was just that at that time, she was hurt by a traitor and was momentarily blinded by anger. All she thought about was revenge. She hadn't noticed it before, but now that she recalled some things, she found a lot of things wrong. Since she and Rong Xiu were already together, and even promised to go back and tell Imperial Father about this matter, it was impossible for her to be engaged to other people. Did something happen after she returned to Tianling? Rong Xiu looked at her with a deep gaze and sighed. It was as if he was happy, but at the same time, it was as if he was feeling pity for her. "So you've remembered so much. No wonder the totem." He was silent for a while. Then, as if he had made an important decision, he said, "We have indeed known each other since 3 years ago." Chu Luiwei's heart skipped a beat. 3 years ago. It had been a year and a half since her rebirth, and 2.5 years since her death. If they had met 3 years ago, in other words, they knew each other at least half a year before she died? As if he had guessed what Chu Luiwei was thinking, Rong Xiu smiled and shook his head. "Actually, it's a little longer than you think. Later, you said you wanted to go back, so we separated. But a few months after that, something happened to you. You know what happened after that?" The blood in Chu Liyue's eardrums was gurgling, and it hurt. It was as if an invisible hand had suddenly clenched her heart, making it difficult for her to breathe. Her throat was tight as she asked with difficulty, "So, my rebirth in Empire Yaochen is also related to you?" She was lucky to be reborn in Chu Liyue's body in Empire Yaochen. Moreover, she happened to meet Rong Xiu that day. There were too many coincidences, so it was impossible for people to doubt it. Rong Xiu rubbed his finger gently on the teacup when he heard this. The room was silent. Every minute and every second was incomparably torturous. Just when Chu Liyue thought that Rong Xiu wouldn't answer, he finally spoke. "Yes. I purposely waited there for your return. Why haven't the two of them come out yet? I don't know what they are talking about. They actually chatted for so long?" 36 respected Elder Ming came to the sacrificial god hall after dealing with some trivial matters after the concubine selection ceremony. He saw Yan Qing and Yu Mo guarding the door from afar, and he couldn't help but ask curiously. "Greetings to 36 respected Elder Ming." The two of them bowed respectfully. 36 respected Elder Ming waved his hand and raised his chin, unable to hide the curiosity in his eyes. "How is it? This? Respected Elder, you also know that there are Xian formations and barriers around the sacrificial god hall. If His Highness doesn't want us to hear or see it, he naturally has a way. We also don't know what's going on inside." Umo answered carefully as he looked at the sky that was already turning white. Most of the night had passed, and the sky was already bright. But since the person inside didn't come out, they didn't dare to disturb her. "Princess Consort has been rushing all the way here. It must be very tiring. She might be resting inside." 36 respected Elder Ming stroked his beard and was very understanding. Glancing from the corner of his eyes, his movements suddenly paused. "The child who came with Princess Consort?" He pointed to a small purple figure sitting on a jade stool and asked. "Yes. He's been here since yesterday until now." Speaking of this child, Yu Mo and Yan Qing also had a headache. Yesterday, when His Highness and Princess Consort returned, this child had been by Princess Consort's side. After that, Princess Consort said that she wanted to have a private chat with His Highness, so she left this child behind. Originally, they had specially arranged a room for him to rest, but no matter how they persuaded him, he was indifferent and just sat there. They thought that it wasn't a big deal for a child to be a little stubborn. At most, they would wait for him to fall asleep before sending him into the room. Who knew that he actually maintained that position and waited until now? Strange. 36 respected Elder Ming narrowed his eyes slightly. That child didn't look like an ordinary child. Moreover, although there weren't any fluctuations of force on his body, he had an inexplicable aura that made people feel reverence. "I'm afraid he's not ordinary," 36 respected Elder Ming thought for a while and said, "Just let him do whatever he wants." He turned back to look at the tightly shut door. "Forget it, I'll come back later." After saying that, he turned around and planned to leave. However, just as he took a few steps, the sound of the door opening came from behind him. Creak. 36 respected Elder Ming, why are you looking for I? Rong Xiu's low and slightly hoarse voice sounded. "Greetings, Your Highness." Yan Qing and Yu Mo hurriedly bowed. 36 respected Elder Ming looked back. Rong Xiu was still wearing the same black clothes from yesterday. There were faint dark circles under his eyes, as if he hadn't slept for the entire night. 36 respected Elder Ming looked inside, but unfortunately he didn't see anything. "How's Princess Consort?" Rong Xiu smiled faintly. "She's already asleep. She had been constantly on the move during this period of time, and her memory was gradually recovering. She indeed needed a good rest." "That's good," 36 respected Elder Ming nodded comfortingly. Immediately, his expression became more serious as he asked in a deep voice, "Your Highness, have you heard about what happened at the academy?" Chapter 1092. Rong Xiu nodded. "Yesterday, Jiang Jiwan told I some things." 36 respected Elder Ming frowned. "Your Highness, what plans do you have?" Rong Xiu thought for a moment and said, "Let's settle the matters here first. There's no rush for anything else." 36 respected Elder Ming knew that he was talking about Chu Liyue. The position of the princess consort has been decided. Your Highness, do you want to immediately? Rong Xiu shook his head. I might need to wait for a while. I know what to do. 36 respected Elder Ming need not worry. 36 respected Elder Ming wanted to persuade him again, but seeing Rong Xiu's calm and determined expression, he did not continue. I'll deal with it for now. It won't be too late to go after your Highness has chosen a time. Rong Xiu cupped his hands and said seriously, I'll have to trouble you. Hey, don't you have enough trouble for me? I don't need you this time. 36 respected Elder Ming chuckled. Let her have a good rest in these few days, or let her walk around Yuntian Tower and familiarize herself with it. It was not easy to wait for them to come. He had to give them some time alone. After saying that, 36 respected Elder Ming waved his hand and turned to leave. However, after taking 2 steps, he suddenly stopped and walked back to a position a few steps away from Rong Xiu. He lowered his voice and asked curiously and mysteriously, "Oh right, when that girl was tested for her bloodline talent, did you see the totem on it clearly?" Rong Xiu's eyes flickered, and then he shook his head. 36 respected Elder Ming immediately looked regretful. That's a pity. I didn't see it clearly at that time. I thought you could see it. He was very clear about Chu Liyue's background. It was also because of this that he was curious about why she had such a shocking bloodline talent in her body. Perhaps there was some secret hidden in this that even she didn't know about. If he could see the totem clearly, he might be able to follow the clues and find the answer. Unfortunately, then this old man will take his leave first. 36 respected Elder Ming glanced into the room again. Although she is now the rightful princess consort, there may be trouble in the future. Must take good care of her. Rong Xiu nodded. His tone was calm but firm. Don't worry, with me around, I won't let her suffer any more grievances. After the consort selection ceremony, Chu Liyue was chosen as a consort, which made many women envious and jealous. However, they also understood that even though this match was specially prepared by Rong Xiu for Chu Liyue, she had indeed won this position with her own strength. Even if they were to do it again, the one who would win would still be her. Therefore, after the matter was over, most of the women were disappointed, but they quickly got over it. However, among them, there were naturally some who were stubborn and couldn't get out of it. Jiang Jiwan was like that. When she saw that Chu Liyue already had the holy ring on her hand, she finally couldn't bear it anymore and left the scene. At that moment, she understood that everything had nothing to do with her from the beginning to the end. After all these years, she was just imagining things. In the end, she didn't get anything. Instead, she became a laughingstock. She would become a princess consort. This was something that everyone had tacitly agreed upon for many years. It was obvious how those people would look at her now. After returning to the Immortal Water Mausoleum that night, Jiang Jiwan was bedridden and had a high fever. This made Jiang Hetian's heart ache even more. He wanted nothing more than to kill those 2 people to vent the hatred in his heart. Jiang Hetian sat by the bed and comforted her. Xin, it's not worth it to be so sad over them. There will naturally be better men to match you in the future. Let's not talk about other things. Just in the academy alone, who knows how many people like you? They might not be any worse than Rong Xiu. Jiang Jiwan smiled bitterly. Although that was the case, she had liked Rong Xiu for a long time. Moreover, for so many years, she had always thought that she would be with him and become his princess consort. She had even fantasized about how the wedding ceremony would be held many times. But now, she had suddenly lost everything. How could she recover in such a short period of time? However, she still nodded reluctantly. I know. After I recover, I will return to the academy directly. Jiang Hetian patted her hand, a ruthless look flashing across his eyes. Don't worry. This time, Rong Xiu made the Immortal Water Mausoleum lose face. I will remember this. In the future, I will definitely make him pay 100-fold. After a few more words, 36 respected Elder Ming left quickly. After his figure completely disappeared, Rong Xiu turned his gaze slightly and looked at Dugamabao, who was sitting on a jade stool not far away. He strode over with his long legs and sat directly opposite him. "You've been sitting here for an entire night. You should go in and rest." Rong Xiu's lips did not move. He only used his mind to convey his thoughts. At this level, many things were much more convenient. Only then did Dugamabao turn his head and look at him coldly. "Are you done?" Rong Xiu smiled faintly. "I've said everything that needs to be said." A faint light flashed across Dugamabao's demonic purple eyes. He snorted lightly. "So you've only said a part of it? What's the difference between that and not saying anything?" According to Rong Xiu's character, if he was really willing to tell everything, he would have done so long ago. Why would he drag it out until now? It was obvious that he was just being picky with his words. As for how much that girl recalled and when she would be able to remember everything, it was still unknown. Rong Xiu did not deny it. "In the end, I've answered some of her doubts and let her breathe a sigh of relief. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to sleep peacefully now." It was not that he did not want to tell her all the facts, but now was not the best time. "You know that even if I tell her everything now, it will only add to her worries." Dugamabao did not reply. Of course, he knew what Rong Xiu meant. If he did not think so, he would not have needed to look for Rong Xiu. He would have told Chu Luiwei everything on the way here. Rong Xiu paused and said, "Everything will be clear when she breaks through to the god level again." Chapter 1093. Chu Luiwei had a very long dream. In the dream, she was in a strange place. She met a group of strange people and did many strange things. The strangest thing was that she actually dreamed that she was trying to break through to the god realm. Boom! A heavenly tribulation descended. Intense pain spread throughout her body. Chu Luiwei suddenly opened her eyes and woke up. She panted, her heart thumped, and boiling blood flowed through her limbs and bones. The pain seemed to still be lingering. Chu Luiwei subconsciously looked at her surroundings. She was lying on the bed, covered with a cloud brocade quilt, unharmed. However, the feeling of being enveloped by the heavenly tribulation in her dream was too realistic, as if she had really experienced it before. Chu Luiwei took a deep breath, and a familiar faint fragrance filled the air. It was Rong Xiu's aura. Right? She was now in Rong Xiu's bedroom in the sacrificial god temple. Last night, the two of them talked a lot about the part of her memories that she had lost, about their past. They had indeed known each other for a long time, but it was not in Yao Chen or Tianling, but in the Divine Ruins world. Rong Xiu made it clear that the first time they met, as well as the things that happened afterward, actually happened in the Divine Ruins. He only found out later that she was not from the Divine Ruins world, but from the Tianling dynasty. And after that, something happened to her. Later, Rong Xiu felt that something was wrong. He tried his best to find a way to let her reincarnate into Chu Luiwei's body and wait for her to wake up. However, because she was too decisive before she died and chose to die with the Tianjing Yuan meridian, her soul was scattered after she died, and he could only find a part of it. As a result, her soul was incomplete and she lost a part of her memories. Unfortunately, it was the part of the memory between them. Chu Luiwei rubbed the space between her eyebrows. After a night of rest, she finally regained her energy. After spending some time to sort out yesterday's events, she seemed to have sobered up a lot, but she also had a lot of new questions. This was because she had no idea how she had managed to get to the Divine Ruins world from Tianling. Rong Xiu didn't seem to be very clear about this part, because not long after he found out that she came from Tianling, she went back and he didn't have time to ask. Chu Luiwei walked to the table and poured himself a cup of tea. Smoke lingered in the air, and the air was steaming. It seemed to be freshly brewed. Chu Luiwei's movements paused as a deep thought flashed through his eyes. In fact, last night, she had tried to ask Rong Xiu if he knew anything about the Black Pyramid. Rong Xiu seemed to know nothing about this. Chu Luiwei had always suspected that the black-clothed man was Rong Xiu, but now she was a little shaken. On one hand, the black-clothed man had sealed a part of her soul. If Rong Xiu was really him, then he should be busy helping her find a complete soul to recover her memories. On the other hand, in the fragmented memories she recalled, there were two figures that were very clear. One was Rong Xiu, and the other was the black-clothed man. But from what she knew, Rong Xiu and him were indeed two different people. And Rong Xiu didn't seem to know much about that person. As for the truth, perhaps she would have to wait until she remembered everything before she could understand. Thinking of this, Chu Luiwei held her breath and focused. There were already 3 cracks on the black pyramid that was quietly floating in her dantian. A golden light faintly seeped out from within. Her fragmented memories should have flowed out from here. It would be great if she could open it. Chu Luiwei gathered her force and prepared to hit it again. Creak! The door suddenly opened. Chu Luiwei paused in her actions and looked up. Rong Xiu walked in. "You're up? Why don't you sleep a little longer?" Chu Luiwei nodded. "I've rested enough." Sensing the force surging in her body, Rong Xiu's eyebrows twitched slightly. "What were you thinking about just now?" "I was thinking about how to recover my past memories," Chu Luiwei said honestly. Rong Xiu felt an inexplicable pain in a certain part of his body. He clenched his fist and coughed. "This matter can't be rushed. Anyway, I've already remembered some of it, and I'll naturally remember it in the future." Chu Luiwei nodded. That was all she could do now. "Your priority now is to improve your cultivation as soon as possible." A cold and cute voice suddenly came from the door. Chu Luiwei looked over and saw a purple figure. "Dabeo, you're here too?" Dugu Mabao's face instantly darkened. Rong Xiu kindly reminded her. We came in together." Unfortunately, because of her small body, she was completely blocked by Rong Xiu's figure in front of her, so Chu Luiwei did not see her. Chu Luiwei was speechless. Dugu Mabao said word by word. "From today onwards, you'll play chess with me for 4 hours every day." "No!" Chu Luiwei screamed and hugged her head in pain. 4 hours was not considered long for a chess game. After all, sometimes a chess game could drag on for even longer. However, she was playing chess with Dugu Mabao. Chu Luiwei recalled the night when she was dominated by Dugu Mabao's terrifying chess skills. Until now, she had not been able to last more than 15 minutes. Every time, she would be killed after a short while. Most importantly, it was the most miserable kind. For hours. She did not know what kind of torture she would be subjected to. In addition, for 2 hours every day, the puppet I made will spar with you. Dugu Mabao narrowed its eyes. Its originally watery and devilish eyes were now flashing with a murderous glint. "Since you're still at the beginner stage of the 7th stage, I'll start with the more basic ones." Let's start with the beginner stage of the 8th stage. Chu Luiwei's eyes twitched. "Dabeo, do you have some misunderstanding about the beginner stage of the 7th stage?" Chu Luiwei's eyes twitched, and she struggled to ask. "I'm at the beginner stage of the 7th stage, and you want me to spar with the beginner stage of the 8th stage, isn't this a little? Then let's start with the intermediate stage of the 8th stage. We'll do as you said at the beginning." Chu Luiwei's strong desire to live made her react quickly. Based on her understanding of Dugu Mabao, he would definitely do what he said. As long as she was still alive, he would not go easy on her. Dugu Mabao glanced at her as if he had seen through her thoughts and said directly, "I'll only give you 10 days. After 10 days, you'll be at the intermediate stage of the 8th stage." Chu Luiwei. "Dabeo, I was wrong. This is the Yuntian Tower? The density of the force of heaven and earth is enough to speed up your cultivation by several times. Moreover, you've recovered your Tianjing Yuan meridian, so it should be even more so." Dugu Mabao frowned as he spoke, and his eyes were filled with disdain. "You've been at the beginner stage of the 7th stage for too long. Chu Luiwei?" Chapter 1094. How does it feel to have a powerful senior personally and carefully teaching you? Chu Luiwei finally understood. It was simply purgatory on earth. She used to think that she was diligent enough in her cultivation, but after meeting Dugu Mabao, she knew that she was wrong. According to him, the weak should have the self-awareness of the weak. Anyway, the consort selection ceremony was over, and the matters here had come to an end for the time being. It was time to cultivate properly. Chu Liwei tried to defend herself. Actually, I shouldn't be that bad, right? Yesterday, I even measured 11 on the infinite divine dial. Dugamabao seemed unmoved and looked up lazily. So what? Aren't you still a mere rank 7 warrior? Chu Liwei felt that she had been dealt a heavy blow again. Suddenly, she thought of something and looked up at the two people in front of her. By the way, there's something I forgot to ask before. Your Highness chessboard seems to be similar to Daoist? Dugamabao and Rong Xiu both fell silent. After a moment, Dugamabao said, "Pack up first, I'll come back in 15 minutes. With that, he put his hands behind his back and walked away with his head held high. But for some reason, Chu Liwei felt that his back view was inexplicably guilty. She glanced at Rong Xiu from the corner of her eye. Rong Xiu said warmly, "Senior is powerful, and it's a rare opportunity to cultivate with him. You must cherish it. I won't disturb you." With that, he also planned to turn around and leave. Wait. Chu Liwei suddenly called out to him. "Have the people of the various tribes left?" Rong Xiu turned around. "Some have already left, but a small number are still here." As if guessing what she wanted to ask, Rong Xiu added, "The people of Cave Heaven Cliff are still here." Chu Liwei was relieved. "That's good. I promised to treat Lin Qifei's illness. The Lin family head has treated me well, so I can't go back on my word." She looked at Rong Xiu. "I wonder if you can ask them to stay here for a few days and let them leave after Lin Qifei's body recovers?" Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows slightly. "Actually, there are a few celestial physicians in the Yuntian Tower, and they are quite strong." Chu Liwei thought for a moment and shook his head. "Since we've already agreed to it, it's naturally not good to go back on our words. Moreover, the main problem with his body had already been solved. He only needed to recuperate for a few more days. It wouldn't take much effort." Rong Xiu paused and suddenly took a step forward. He pinched her chin with one hand and leaned over to kiss her. She was sitting while he was standing, so there was a height difference. Suddenly bending down like this, a strong sense of oppression attacked. Before Chu Liwei could react, she was surrounded by the familiar cold fragrance on his body. The next moment, her lips were slightly cold, but quickly turned hot. Chu Liwei subconsciously reached out and hooked her arms around his neck. She tilted her head slightly and pushed herself forward. Rong Xiu held her waist with one hand, as if he wanted to crush her and integrate her into his body. Her waist was thin and soft, and her body was warm and soft. Chu Liwei snorted softly. Her voice was gentle and lingering. Rong Xiu's hands suddenly tightened. Then Chu Liwei leaned over to his ear. She could even see the tips of his crimson ears. Her breath was like orchids as she whispered softly in his ear. "Your Highness is most adorable when you're weak and delicate." No man would be able to remain calm after hearing this. Not to mention the current situation. However, just as Rong Xiu was about to move, Chu Liwei suddenly broke away from his embrace and patted his shoulder lightly. "Alright, it's getting late. Your Highness, I won't send you off." With that, she got up to leave. Rong Xiu hugged her from behind. Chu Liwei was now considered tall and slender among women, but compared to Rong Xiu, she was still small. His iron arms wrapped around her, easily trapping her tightly in his embrace, not leaving a single gap between them. Rong Xiu rested his chin on her shoulder. His voice was hoarse and restrained. "You did it on purpose." Chu Liwei snorted softly. "It's fine as long as your Highness understands." Rong Xiu paused for a while before saying regretfully, "We should have gotten married earlier." Chu Liwei raised her eyebrows and turned to look at him. "Why don't your Highness tell me more about our past?" Rong Xiu suddenly laughed softly. Immediately after, he tapped her lips and lowered his voice. Pillow talk shouldn't be like this." His voice was low and pleasant, with a hint of hoarseness. Chu Liu's ears heated up. After barely managing to win back half of the game, Rong Xiu finally stopped. He carefully reminded her of some things before leaving. In the blink of an eye, only Chu Liwei was left in the room. She looked back at the door, narrowed her eyes, and snorted softly. She could hide now, but she couldn't hide forever. She would eventually find out what she needed to know. Not long after Chu Luiyue tidied up, Dugu Mabao came in again according to the previous agreement. At this time, Chu Luiyue was already sitting at the chess table by the window, obviously waiting for him. Seeing him come in, Chu Luiyue smiled and said, "Dabao, sit." Dugu Mabao calmly walked over and sat opposite her. "Let's begin," Chu Luiyue said. Dugu Mabao's sleeves moved slightly. He looked up at her, seemingly hesitant. Chu Luiyue said seriously, "I promise I won't ask about those things again." Dugu Mabao waved his chubby hand. Several rays of light flew out and instantly intertwined between the two of them to form a chessboard. "It's not that I can't tell you." Dugu Mabao placed a piece first and said in a vague manner, "The faster you break through, the stronger you become, and the more you will know." Chu Luiyue nodded and placed a piece as well. "I know." After Rong Xiu came out of the bedroom, he went straight to the study. It had only been a day, but there were many booklets on the table. It was obvious that most of them were related to Chu Luiyue being chosen as the princess consort. Of course, because Chu Luiyue was chosen openly, they did not have any serious reasons to refute, except for her birth. Although Chu Luiyue's level 11 on the infinite divine dial was already tested, in the eyes of some people, this was far from enough. Rong Xiu casually opened the booklets and dismissed them all. Clearly, he did not intend to pay attention to them. Since his title was already confirmed, no matter what they did, they would not cause any trouble. When Rong Xiu finished dealing with the last booklet, a strong aura suddenly came from the outside at high speed. Rong Xiu's eyes flickered as he looked up. The door of the study was wide open. The next moment, a figure appeared at the door. It was Elder Tong Chuan. Rong Xiu smiled and said casually, "Elder Tong Chuan, why are you back so soon?" Elder Tong Chuan's face was filled with unconcealable anger. He strode in and said angrily, "So your highness purposely sent me away to choose that unknown Shangguan Yu as the princess consort?" Chapter 1095. The smile on Rong Xiu's face faded and a layer of frost covered his eyes. "Respected Elder Tongchuan, please watch your words. Is now the princess consort of Yuntian Tower and you cannot insult her so casually." Insult? Respected Elder Tongchuan also had a stomach full of anger. Only the heavens knew how angry he was when he heard this news and understood the cause and effect of this matter. Is there anything wrong with this old man's words? Isn't her origin unknown? On the surface, she says that she is an outsider, but she clearly has an extremely tyrannical bloodline talent in her body. Until now, no one knows what her identity is. In addition, she has also contracted with 2 spiritual beasts. This does not conform to common sense. If your highness said that there is nothing fishy about her, would you believe it yourself? In any case, there are too many suspicious points about this woman and she really cannot bear the responsibility of being the princess consort. Rong Xiu's expression was indifferent as he leaned back on the chair and crossed his arms in front of him. Respected Elder Tongchuan, you came back today just to criticize I and the princess consort? If not for your highness's improper actions, this old man would not have to do this. Respected Elder Tongchuan's face was full of anger. Not only this old man, your highness had also sent the other respected elders out for various reasons. It was all to set up this situation in advance. Isn't that right? Your highness is like this for a woman, it really makes my heart cold. Actually, this matter was very simple. At the start, Rong Xiu had accepted the Ming tribe's opinion and agreed to hold the princess consort selection ceremony and had requested for all the tribes to gather. To anyone who heard this, they would think that he was going to hold a proper princess consort selection. According to this process, the final result should be Immortal Water Tomb's Jiang Jiwan. If he was willing, he could also choose a concubine and so on. Thus, including respected Elder Tongchuan and the rest, no one thought too much about it. Even when the respected elders were sent out before the princess consort selection ceremony, they also did not think about it. Who would have thought that Rong Xiu had actually decided to choose that Shangguan Yu from the start? Immortal Water Tomb is the head of the 28 tribes and has been loyal to the Yuntian Tower for thousands of years. Eldest Miss Jiang is deeply loved by the tribe leader and is already the most suitable candidate for the princess consort. Your Highness has never thought that your actions will undoubtedly cause the Immortal Water Tomb's reputation. Eldest Miss Jiang also, this is I's princess consort selection, not you. Rong Xiu interrupted him in a seemingly smiling manner, but there was no happiness in his eyes. In the end, the Tomb of Immortal Water is only one of the 28 tribes. It should comply with all of Yun Tiang's decisions. Princess Consort's princess consort, eyes of her. Respected Elder Tongchuan. Even the patriarch has never admitted in public that he wants to choose Jiang Ziyuan as his princess consort. What, if I don't choose her, will the Immortal Water Tomb rebel? Rong Xiu's every word was loud and clear, and it was majestic. When he said the last word, his eyes were filled with coldness. Furthermore, respected Elder Tongchuan, for you to barge into I's study and question I, doesn't it seem inappropriate? Tongchuan's heart trembled. He was too angry and had almost lost his mind. That was why he barged in without a care. He had almost forgotten that the Rong Xiu of today was no longer the youth who could be bullied by anyone. Respected Elder Tongchuan took a deep breath and continued. If your Highness insists on doing things your own way, then there's nothing we can do. This news will spread very quickly. If the Academy insists on removing Shangguan Yu's princess consort, your Highness, please be prepared. Digression, a February with a stomachache until 1 in the morning, 6 in the evening. Chapter 1096. Elder Tongchuan, you don't have to worry about that. Rong Xiu chuckled. If you are really upset about this, why don't you spend some time comforting Lord Jiang and Lady Jiang at the Immortal Water Mausoleum? After all, you have always been on good terms with them. Tongchuan's heart skipped a beat as he panicked. He quickly glanced at Rong Xiu. Did Rong Xiu know something? However, there was only a faint smile on Rong Xiu's elegant and devilish face. His eyes were deep, and nothing could be seen. The Son of God was getting more and more ruthless, and his thoughts were getting more and more unpredictable. Elder Tongchuan felt troubled. He took a deep breath and gave himself a way out. That won't be necessary. I am the elder of Yuntian Tower. I should keep my distance from the other tribes. How can I do such a thing? I am here today for the sake of His Highness and the entire Yuntian Tower. If I have offended you, I hope His Highness can forgive me. Rong Xiu didn't seem to mind. He smiled and nodded. Of course, Lord Tongchuan has been loyal to the Yuntian Tower for many years. How can I be unhappy with you over such a small matter? That's good, Tongchuan's voice became softer. For some reason, Rong Xiu looked normal, but he was getting more and more agitated. After a few more words, he hurriedly left. Looking at his back, Rong Xiu narrowed his eyes and curled his lips in disappointment. True, unable to withstand a single blow, he had only vaguely mentioned it, yet he was already so flustered. It was rare to be able to be arrogant in the Yuntian Tower for so many years. Thinking about the academy, Rong Xiu's eyes darkened. He picked up his pen and wrote a letter. Chu Luiwei was unaware of the infighting in the outside world. She was playing chess with Dugumabao. Dugumabao waved his finger and placed a piece on the chessboard. Chu Luiwei thought. Bam! The chessboard disappeared. Chu Luiwei rubbed her face. I lost again. Dugumabao's expression was calm. You've improved a little, but it's still not enough. Chu Luiwei gave him a sad look. An extra 5 steps is considered an improvement? In these 4 hours, she couldn't even remember how many times she had lost. And after all this was over, her only improvement was that she could take 5 more pitiful steps. Moreover, it was only that one time. Rong Xiu should have played chess with you before, right? How many steps can he take under your hands? Chu Luiwei. Dugumabao looked up slightly and glanced at her. Can't. Chu Luiwei was speechless. Was there a need to ask? Of course, she knew that Dugumabao was stronger than her. Even though Dugu Mabao defeated her by half a move in the consort selection ceremony, she knew that he hadn't shown his true strength. Thinking about how she hadn't won against him properly even once, Chu Luiwei felt very unhappy. Then let's continue. Dugu Mabao shook his head. It's time to practice something else. If you want to continue, you can wait until tomorrow. Chu Luiwei suddenly remembered that Dugu Mabao had asked her to set aside 4 hours to practice with the puppet he made. She looked around. It doesn't seem appropriate here, does it? Dugu Mabao jumped down and walked outside. The sacrificial god temple is huge, where can't we practice? After Chu Luiwei came out, she realized that she was worrying too much. Dugu Mabao seemed to have made arrangements, and Yan Qing led them to the training field at the back of the temple. On the way, Chu Luiwei didn't see anyone else other than those soldiers in black armor. She didn't feel it when she came up last night, but now, she realized that the sacrificial god temple's security was extremely strict. Those who were chosen to stay here were naturally very strong and well-trained soldiers. Chu Luiwei noticed that most of them had the smell of blood on them. Obviously, these were people who had experienced life and death battles. Chu Luiwei's understanding of the Yuntian Tower increased. The first-rate clan of the Divine Ruins was indeed not to be underestimated. The training field covered a large area, and the ground was paved with black jade. A huge Yuntian Tower totem could be vaguely seen in the middle. Strangely, there was no one guarding here. Other than the 3 of them, there was no one else. It was even more deserted than outside. Yan Qing explained, "Princess Consort, this is His Highness Martial Arts Training Ground. Usually, only His Highness comes here. Without His Highness's permission, no one else is allowed to enter." Chu Luiwei nodded in understanding. "And it was specially used. His Highness has already ordered that you 2 can come and go as you please. If you need anything, just tell me." Chu Luiwei raised her eyebrows and teased, "Only here? Can we get out of the sacrificial god temple?" Yan Qing's iceberg face cracked for a moment, but soon returned to normal. "You are wearing the holy ring on your hand, and now your status in the Yuntian Tower is almost the same as the Holy Sun. Naturally, you can go wherever you want." This sounded good. "You can go down first," Dugu Mabao said. These words were directed at Yan Qing. Yan Qing bowed respectfully, "Yes. This subordinate is waiting outside." After saying that, she quickly retreated without hesitation. "Looks like Yan Qing and the rest know you too." Chu Luiwei looked back. Yan Qing had already left, and the door was closed. Dugu Mabao did not reply and only raised his chin. "Now you can go up." Chu Luiwei raised her eyebrows, tipped her toes, and jumped to the center of the training field. "Let's begin." Dugu Mabao waved his wrist, and a purple light flew out. Bang! In the next moment, a tall figure appeared in front of Chu Luiwei. This was a bronze puppet. It was unknown what material was used to make it, but it looked neither gold nor jade. Under the sunlight, it had a faint luster. Chu Luiwei already had experience. She knew that although this puppet looked stiff, it was actually very agile. Other than not being able to use force, it was almost no different from a real person. Swish! A purple light flashed across the puppet's eyes. In the next moment, it took the initiative to attack. It went straight for Chu Luiwei. In an instant, it was in front of him. Chu Luiwei was shocked. So fast. It was indeed an early-stage rank 8. The bronze puppet punched out, aiming directly at Chu Luiwei's face. Chu Luiwei raised his arm to block. Bang! A dull sound of collision was heard. A wave of pain came, but it was much better than what Chu Luiwei had expected. Although you are only in early-stage rank 7, you have benefited from going through the god's tribulation. Your physical strength and other aspects have been greatly enhanced. Your real strength is actually at the peak of rank 7. Dugu Mabao's voice was heard. His eyes swept across Chu Luiwei's face. "Looks like it won't take 10 days. Let's change it to 5 days." Chapter 1097. Before Chu Luiwei could react, the puppet in front of her was already closing in on her again. It swept its long leg and kicked Chu Luiwei directly. A cold wind blew, and Chu Luiwei immediately dodged. However, the puppet was faster. He kicked her in the waist. Chu Luiwei staggered, but she endured the pain. Taking advantage of the situation, she turned around, grabbed the puppet's ankle, and flung it fiercely. Bam! The tall and heavy puppet fell heavily to the ground. However, it did not feel pain and kicked Chu Luiwei without hesitation. Chu Luiwei made a prompt decision to retreat. The puppet followed closely behind. Chu Luiwei was no match for it now and was almost being chased by it. Hence, she could only use all kinds of nimble methods to fight for a chance for herself. The two of them were entangled in a fight. From time to time, all kinds of muffled sounds of collision could be heard. Dugu Mabao was at the side of the field, standing with his hands behind his back and watching quietly. There was no expression on her cute little face, only a pair of eyes were fixed on the field. She was being beaten up now so that she would not be beaten up in the future, and she could even beat up others. It would be a lie to say that he did not feel sorry for her. However, this was not the first time something like this had happened anyway. In the end, he still had to let her break through as soon as possible. 4 hours passed by very slowly. When Chu Luiwei finally found an opportunity to find her opponent's loophole and barely restrained him, her body was already covered in wounds. It was obvious that her body was already covered in bruises. Fortunately, Chu Luiwei still had force to use, so her internal organs were not hurt. Dugu Mabao nodded and recalled the puppet. That's all for today. Chu Luiwei let out a long breath, her legs so weak that she almost fell to the ground. Dugu Mabao looked at the sky. You can arrange the rest of the time yourself. Then he turned around and left. Dabeo, where are you going? Chu Luiwei asked. Dugu Mabao stopped in his tracks. Cultivate. Chu Luiwei had never expected to hear this word from Dugu Mabao. His strength was unfathomably strong, and it seemed that even 36 respected Elder Ming and the others did not see anything fishy about him. So you also need to cultivate? Chu Luiwei couldn't help but sigh. Dugu Mabao turned back to look at her. He seemed a little embarrassed, but he stopped himself from saying anything. In the end, he left at an even faster speed. Of course, he would continue to cultivate. Otherwise, he would be trapped in this tiny body for the rest of his life. However, he really couldn't bring himself to say such words to Chu Luiwei, so he could only leave without another word. Chu Luiwei rubbed his nose. Well, although Dabao was strong, it was obvious that he was not completely without worries. She rested on the spot for a while, then sat cross-legged, closed her eyes, and adjusted her breathing. At the same time, she kept replaying the scene of her battle with the puppet. This kind of puppet could not use the force of heaven and earth, so its melee combat strength was extremely strong. Whether it was strength, agility, or other aspects, it was stronger than a real cultivator of the same level. And its moves were also extremely ruthless and accurate. Chu Luiwei went through all the details of the fight in her mind and carefully comprehended it. She only opened her eyes after she had completely understood it. It was already afternoon. Chu Luiwei thought for a while, then walked to the door. Yanqing was waiting. Greetings, princess. Chu Luiwei asked. Where are those people from Heavenly Cave Cliff now? Lin Tianfeng and the others were still living in the same place as before. Previously, Yanqing had said that she could let them move to a better place, but Lin Tianfeng had declined. Lin Tianfeng knew very well that all the benefits they enjoyed after coming to Yuntian Tower were actually thanks to Chu Luiwei. She might not mind, but Lin Tianfeng did not want that. If it were not for Lin Qifei's body not yet fully recovered, they might have left long ago. Lin Tianfeng's only request was to be able to see Chu Luiwei again and ask her to help cure Lin Qifei's illness completely. But he was not sure. Although they got along well with Chu Luiwei before, she was now the princess of Yuntian Tower, and her status was different from before. Therefore, Lin Tianfeng's heart was full of uneasiness, and he could only look out the door from time to time, hoping to see that familiar figure again. However, their behavior was very laughable in the eyes of the people living with them in Cold Mountain Valley. Oh, Master Lin, you're very lucky this time. Han Quan stood across from him and said somewhat cynically. Lin Tianfeng ignored him. Han Quan sneered. We're already packing up and getting ready to leave. Why, Master Lin, you're not leaving? That's right, it wasn't easy to find someone to rely on. If it were me, of course I wouldn't be willing to leave. Han Quan said sourly. It was impossible to say that he did not envy Lin Tianfeng and the others. Originally, Cave Heaven Cliff was a little worse than Cold Mountain Valley, but now, because they happened to meet Shangguan Yu, their situation was completely different. Although there was a lot of controversy about the position of Shangguan Yu's princess, it was an existence that they could only dream of but not reach. Who wouldn't be jealous that Cave Heaven Cliff could climb such a high branch? But if you ask me, she's already a princess now, so why would she care about you? Lin family head, are you really going to stay here like this? Lin Tianfeng frowned. It's none of your business. Han Quan crossed his arms and sneered coldly. Don't blame me for not reminding you. Shangguan Yu is very popular now, but she stole Miss Zhang's princess position from the Immortal Water Tomb. They won't let this go. For the time being, they can't do anything to Shangguan Yu, but can't they use the people around her to sharpen their knives? In the future, I didn't expect Valley Master Han to know so much about the Yuntian Tower. A clear voice sounded. Han Quan was shocked. Lin Tianfeng, on the other hand, looked happy. Do, greets the princess. He immediately reacted and bowed respectfully when he saw the person who had come. Chu Luiwei helped him up. You're welcome, Master Lin. I'm here today to treat the fourth young master. I was dealing with some matters before, so it took a while for me to come. Lin Tianfeng was so excited that he didn't know what to say. Thank you for your concern, princess. Jifei is inside, please. Chu Luiwei nodded slightly and glanced at him from the corner of her eye. Yan Qing, since Valley Master Han is so insightful, why don't we keep them here for a few more days? When His Highness has time, we can invite him to listen to Valley Master Han's advice. Yes. Han Quan's face paled. He was about to explain, but Chu Luiwei ignored him and left with Lin Tianfeng. On the other side, Rong Xiu came out of the study and went straight to his bedroom. But Chu Luiwei wasn't there. Where's the princess? Rong Xiu asked. Umo lowered his head. The princess went to treat the fourth young master. Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows. He really missed the days when he was weak and sick. Chapter 1098. Chu Luiwei followed Lin Tianfeng into the room. Upon hearing the commotion, Lin Qifei came out to welcome her. Paying respects to Her Highness. Lin Qifei bowed respectfully. Even though it had only been a day, the identity of the woman before him had already undergone a tremendous change. Chu Luiwei smiled faintly. Fourth young Master Lin, there's no need to stand on ceremony. I promised to treat you, so naturally, I won't go back on my words. Please take a seat. Only then did Lin Qifei sit down. Chu Luiwei took his pulse and pondered for a moment. Your body has already recovered by 60%. You should be able to make a full recovery in just a few more days. Thank you, Her Highness. At the side, Lin Tianfeng could not suppress his excitement and said gratefully. In the past, Chu Luiwei was willing to help them because she wanted to obtain their help. But now, despite her astounding identity, she was still willing to help them. This was on a completely different level. Naturally, Lin Tianfeng was moved by her words. Lin Jifei smiled, and there was a trace of ripples in his clear eyes. Actually, the main problem has already been resolved. You can just leave the rest to the other celestial physician. There's no need for Her Highness to go to such lengths. Other celestial physician? Chu Luiwei released her hand, raised her brows, and laughed. Elder Lu Ruhai? The room immediately fell silent. There was no one else in the room other than the four of them, so there wasn't much apprehension between them. Lin Tianfeng frowned. He did offend Her Highness several times in the past, and I didn't expect him to say such words in front of everyone in the ethereal hall. To publicly accuse Chu Luiwei of being an outsider, wasn't he trying to make things difficult for her? If not for Rong Xiu and 36 respected Elder Ming's protection, as well as Chu Luiwei's outstanding performance, who knew what would have happened? Chu Luiwei walked to the side and wrote down a prescription. As he wrote, he said, Lu Ruhai and I have no grudge against each other, but he is targeting me so boldly and arrogantly. Don't you find it strange at all, Master Lin? Lin Tianfeng's expression changed. Princess consort, you mean, if he's only making things difficult for me because I cured Lin Qifei and did what he couldn't do, then he's too petty. However, no matter what, he's still a 9-star pinnacle celestial physician. All he has to do is use some means to punish me. Why must he bring this matter to the ethereal hall? Chu Luwei put down the pen and carefully reviewed the prescription before handing it over to Yan Qing. Please get me some medicine. Yan Qing took it with both hands, responded respectfully, and left quickly. This was the Yuntian Tower, and Chu Luwei was the newly appointed princess consort. No one dared to do anything to her. Thus, Yan Qing wasn't worried at all. She quickly went to get the medicine. Lin Tianfeng wasn't a fool. He immediately understood what Chu Luwei was trying to say. Princess consort, you're saying that someone instigated Lu Ruhai to do this? Suddenly, his expression changed. The person who did this had to be related to them and had the ability to do so. After thinking about it, there was only one person who could do it. Lu Yuer? He muttered in disbelief. Chu Luwei chuckled. It seems like Master Lin is still clear-headed. Lin Tianhai's face turned green and red. How can that be? Lu Ruhai has been loyal to our Lin clan for decades, and Yuer has only been here for a short while. Fourth young master has been ill for as long as she has been in the Lin clan. Chu Luwei said meaningfully. Lin Tianfeng was shocked. Chu Luwei's words contained too much information. Could it be that Zhifei's illness was caused by her? He looked back at Lin Qifei, only to see that his expression was calm and indifferent, as if he wasn't shocked at all. Lin Qifei had known about it for a long time. Lin Tianfeng felt as if he had been struck by lightning. Master Lin, please don't misunderstand. Fourth young master was indeed born with this illness, and it wasn't inflicted on him by someone else. Of course, his illness in his mother's womb was benefited by someone else. Chu Luwei said calmly. In just a few words, he had revealed the Lin clan's huge secret that had been hidden for many years. Lin Tianfeng trembled, his face pale, and he couldn't speak. Father, don't worry. Your son's body has recovered. I didn't tell you before because I didn't want you to worry. Lin Qifei explained. But you can rest assured now. Lin Tianfeng took a while to process this. Then Lu Ruhai has been saying that he can't cure you all these years. Could it be that he was also pretending? That wasn't a pretense. Lin Qifei smiled faintly. He really doesn't have the ability. If he hadn't met Chu Luwei, he wouldn't have thought that he would have a chance to turn things around. He didn't say it before because he had many concerns. But now, Chu Luwei was the princess of Yuntian Tower, and Lu Ruhai had dug his own grave and made such a big trouble for himself. He might as well take the opportunity to get rid of him once and for all. Chu Luwei took out a bead. This was taken from fourth young master's body before. It's also the cause of his illness. Lu Yi once admitted that it was his sister who did it. Lin Tianfeng was shocked. But he had to believe it, because Chu Luwei didn't have to lie to him about this. Lu Yu, her brother, and Lu Ruhai did offend her, but with her current status, she could easily kill them. Why would she make up such a lie? She has someone behind her? Lin Tianfeng thought for a while and asked. Chu Luwei handed over the bead. I wonder if Master Lin recognizes the pattern on it. Lin Tianfeng carefully took the bead with both hands and looked at it carefully. After a moment, he frowned and shook his head. This seems to be the totem of some clan, but I've never seen it. Is this the person behind Lu Yu? Lin Tianfeng's voice trembled slightly when he spoke. It was indeed difficult for him to accept these things in such a short time. After all, he had always trusted and doted on Lu Yu all these years. He even had some opinions about Lin Qifei because he didn't approve of Lu Yu. Now it seemed ridiculous. Chu Luwei shook her head regretfully. In fact, this result was already within her expectations. Then it seems that we need to look again. Lin Qifei stepped forward and took the bead. Father, don't worry. I know what I'm doing. When my body fully recovers, I will seek justice for myself. Lin Tianfeng's lips moved and he sighed, as if he had aged a few years in an instant. He patted Lin Qifei's shoulder and said in a deep voice, "Don't worry. When we go back this time, Father will deal with them personally." As for Lu Ruhai, he had automatically abandoned the word elder. A traitor was no longer qualified to be called that. "How about we leave it to the princess?" Chu Luiyue touched her chin and smiled. Good. Chapter 1099. At this moment, Lu Ruhai, who was next door, also knew that Chu Luiyue had arrived. He paced around the room anxious and worried. As a pinnacle 9th-grade celestial physician, he was generally respected wherever he went. Therefore, he had always been very arrogant and did not take others seriously. He was also used to having an arrogant temper. But this time, he knew very well that he had kicked an iron plate. Ever since Chu Luiyue's identity as princess consort was confirmed during the consort selection ceremony last night, he was dumbfounded. He did not even remember how he came back. There was only one sentence echoing in his mind. "It's over. It's all over." It would have been fine if he had offended others, but he had offended Chu Luiyue. Moreover, looking at the saint's protection of her, he knew that he had completely offended the saint this time. Lu Ruhai had been feeling uneasy ever since he returned. Originally, he had hoped that Chu Luiyue and the rest would be busy with their own matters and would not care too much about other things. But she still came. Lu Ruhai could not wait to rush over and listen to what they were talking about. The current him still did not know that his fate had actually been decided during the idle conversation between the few of them. Yan Qing quickly returned. Chu Luiyue placed a medicinal cauldron in the room and helped him refine medicine. Of course, she did not use the heavenly square cauldron. Lin Qifei's body was in the final stage of recuperation. He did not even need to refine the medicine. He only needed to brew the medicine. In about an hour, the medicine was ready. The rich medicinal fragrance filled the entire room. Taking a deep breath made one's body and mind feel much better. Lin Tianfeng's original grief and anger also magically calmed down. Lin Qifei used the medicine. His originally pale face gained some color. Actually, his body recovered faster than Chu Luiyue expected. On one hand, Lin Qifei was talented. On the other hand, the rich force of heaven and earth in the Yuntian Tower was very good for the body's recuperation and cultivation. Chu Luiyue looked at Lin Tianfeng. "I'll have to trouble Master Lin to invite Lu Ruhai over." Lin Tianfeng was stunned for a moment, then nodded. After he left, Lin Qifei looked at Chu Luiyue and said firmly, "Thank you. Is there anything else I can help you with?" Chu Luiyue smiled. Lin Qifei was indeed smart. Dealing with smart people was indeed a lot easier. "I do have something that I would like to ask for your help with." "What?" "I would like to ask you to help me build a teleportation array formation." Lin Qifei's eyes flashed slightly. Deep in his eyes, which were as clear as a lake, there seemed to be some waves. "I'll go wherever I come from." Chu Luiyue blinked. From the Cave Heaven Cliff to the Tianling dynasty. As soon as he finished speaking, the room fell into a dead silence. Lin Qifei subconsciously looked at Yan Qing, who was standing next to him. "Yan Qing works for His Highness. Don't worry. No one will know about this." Chu Luiyue said with a smile. Anyway, Rong Xiu would know what she wanted to do sooner or later, so she might as well be frank. Lin Qifei's expression changed slightly. He was really surprised. His Highness doesn't know about this? He will pretend not to know even if he knows. Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows and smiled meaningfully. Her words were very natural and firm. At this moment, Lin Qifei suddenly understood why her eyes were always curved and bright when she talked about her husband. Because she had always trusted and relied on that person. Perhaps she didn't even realize that she was acting coquettishly. Lin Qifei paused. The sects and clans in the world of divine ruins are not allowed to connect with the outside world privately, let alone build teleportation formations. That's why I came to you. Chu Luiyue smiled carelessly. If it were anyone else, they probably wouldn't have the guts. Even if they had the guts, they wouldn't have the ability. But you have both, fourth young Master Lin. The cave heaven cliff guards a door. You know better than anyone how to do this. Besides, you will be the cliff master of the cave heaven cliff sooner or later. It is your territory. It would be best if you are willing to help. I can guarantee that this will be kept a secret. You will not be implicated in any trouble. Fourth young Master Lin, do you agree? Lin Qifei was silent for a moment. Then he smiled helplessly. Since you've already put it this way, how can I refuse? Chu Luiwei had saved his life. It was only right that he repay her with his life. Besides, she didn't hesitate at all. She believed that he could do it. This was the greatest affirmation for him. Lin Qifei knew that he was talented in this area. But he had been seriously ill for many years and didn't dare to have any delusions. He only hid in the dark and occasionally acted. He was not without regrets. Young people were always full of youthful vigor. Who didn't want to achieve great things? It's a deal. Chu Luiwei smiled. Fourth young Master Lin, I look forward to working with you. Lu Ruhai was quickly brought over. Chu Luiwei and the others in the room had already recovered. No one could guess what had happened in that short period of time. Elder Lu, Chu Luiwei greeted him with a smile. Why do you look so tired today? Did you not have enough fun yesterday? Lu Ruhai's heart skipped a beat. Greetings, Your Highness. As he spoke, he bowed with trepidation. Chu Luiwei sat there and slowly poured a cup of tea. But she didn't drink it. Time passed slowly. Lu Ruhai bowed and held his hands. He felt uncomfortable all over. He specialized in celestial physician. His cultivation level as a martial artist was very ordinary. So when Chu Luiwei deliberately exerted pressure, he couldn't bear it. It wasn't until his legs started to tremble and his face turned red that Chu Luiwei spoke casually. Elder Lu, you don't have to be so polite. I'm here today because I have some questions for you. Chu Luiwei looked up at him as she spoke. Her dark and sharp eyes were like blades that could cut through everything. Who is Luiwei's backer? Lu Ruhai was shocked. He suddenly raised his head, but when he met those cold eyes, he quickly lowered his head. I don't know what Your Highness is talking about, Yan Qing. Chu Luiwei called out lazily. Yan Qing stepped forward with an expressionless face and kicked Lu Ruhai's knee hard. Crack. The sound of bones breaking was particularly crisp. Lu Ruhai screamed and knelt on the ground. He wanted to curse out loud, but he didn't forget that the other party was now someone he couldn't afford to offend. So he could only ask Lin Tianfeng for help. Master, save me. Chu Luiwei interrupted him. Elder Lu, there's no need to shout. Master Lin has already taken the initiative to give you to me. Life or death, it's all up to her. Lu Ruhai's heart sank. He forced himself to raise his head. His lips were pale. Why, Your Highness just took the throne, but you can't wait to kill someone who offended you. Aren't you afraid of being criticized for being narrow-minded and ruthless? Chu Luiwei suddenly smiled and said word by word, It's because you just took the throne that you have to set rules. Chapter 1100. Everyone knew that Lu Ruhai had offended her. If she let it go just like that, no one would thank her for her generosity. They would only think that she was weak and easy to bully. Someone had come knocking on her door and almost humiliated her in public. This kind of thing could be tolerated, but should not be tolerated. If they knew that even someone like Lu Ruhai could escape unscathed from her, who knew how much trouble they would cause in the future? Chu Luiwei clearly remembered that when she first came here, those people in Cold Mountain Valley were still talking about how the people of the Immortal Water Tomb would deal with her. If even people of their status could think of this, it could be seen that others also thought so. Chu Luiwei came from outside the realm. Although she had performed outstandingly before on the mountaintop, when she faced the infinite divine dial, the results were even more stunning. But in the end, she did not have the support of a powerful sect behind her. So what if she was the emperor of the Tianling dynasty? In the eyes of these people, she was still not worth mentioning. Therefore, she had to let these people understand that she was not to be trifled with. Apart from that, She had another purpose for interrogating Lu Ruhai. She wanted to find out who Lu Yuer's backer was, in case the enemy was in the dark while she was in the light, and she did not know when she would be schemed against. After all, she was now on the same side as Lin Qifei. If she could really connect Heavenly Cave Cliff and the Tianling dynasty with a teleportation formation, then it would be much more convenient for her to travel between these two places in the future. Moreover, it would not be just her. With her current status, of course, she could enter and leave the Divine Ruins world as she pleased, but there were also great limitations. Rong Xiao, as the Holy Sun, was watched by many people. In the future, she would certainly not lack the same treatment. From this point of view, Chu Luiyue hoped that she could not rely on Rong Xiao and establish her own power and influence. This way, she could leave another path open. Elder Lu, the sooner you explain clearly, the sooner you will suffer less, won't you? Chu Luiyue smiled leisurely. She was clearly smiling, but it made people unconsciously feel a deep sense of fear. Lu Ruhai's eyes averted. I don't know. I really, Yanqing, help Elder Lu Ruhai recall. See if he can remember anything. Chu Luiyue raised his chin. Yanqing responded and immediately stepped forward to attack again. Don't. Lu Ruhai didn't even have the chance to struggle and defend himself before he was sent flying by Yanqing's kick. He slammed into the wall. Yanqing quickly followed up and hit the most vulnerable and painful part of his body. Not long after, Lu Ruhai's initial resistance gradually turned into begging for mercy. In the end, all that was left was a powerless moan of pain. A 9th-grade pinnacle celestial physician was indeed of high status and could attract the admiration and pursuit of many experts. Unfortunately, he could only lie powerlessly on the ground, struggling at death's door. Lu Ruhai's ears were buzzing. Her mind was blank, and her whole body was almost numb from the pain. Only now did he realize that this young woman who was always smiling in front of him really had the intention to kill. I said. Lu Ruhai spat out a few words with difficulty. Chu Luiyue raised her hand. Only then did Yanqing stop. Say it. Lu Ruhai opened his mouth, which was full of blood. Before Lu Ruhai could finish his sentence, he suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes rolled back, and his body convulsed violently. Then he fell to the ground, motionless. Chu Luiyue frowned. Yanqing was about to attack when she stopped her. Don't touch him. Yanqing was stunned. Then she saw Lu Ruhai's body rapidly shriveling and rotting. In the end, it only turned into a pool of blood. It seems that he is also from that side. Chu Luiyue muttered. He and Lu Yuer work together not necessarily because of Lu Yuer's orders. It could also be that they have the same master. I'll have to trouble Master Lin to investigate this matter after we go back. Lin Tianfeng nodded with a complicated expression. The other party's methods are so powerful. I'm afraid Lu Yuer's side has long been prepared. It doesn't matter. Chu Luiyue stood up. The truth will come out one day. It's getting late. I'll leave first. As for Lu Ruhai, we will clean it up. Princess, don't worry. Lin Qifei said warmly. From the beginning to the end, he was much calmer and more composed than Lin Tianfeng. This made Chu Luiyue even more satisfied. She nodded and left with Yanqing. When Chu Luiyue returned to the sacrificial god temple, it was already night. As soon as she entered the room, she saw a familiar figure. It was Rong Xiao. He was lying on the bed, holding a book in his hand. Hearing the movement, he looked up. Before he opened his mouth, a light and bitter medicinal fragrance came to the tip of his nose. He narrowed his eyes, then put the book down and coughed. Chu Luiyue glanced at him. Your Highness, you've always been in good health. Why are you coughing? Rong Xiao's face turned pale. It's probably because I didn't sleep last night that I'm feeling a little uncomfortable. Chu Luiyue remembered that last night she said she fell asleep in a daze. In her impression, she was indeed being held by someone. He didn't sleep last night? During the day, his face did seem a little haggard. Chu Luiyue walked over to take his pulse. Your Highness's body is weak. If you're not sick, Chu Luiyue raised her eyes slightly and gave him a warning look. Your Highness can lie to me once, but there won't be a second time. Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows, turned his wrist, and held her hand. Are you still angry with me? He was always cold, noble, and charming. Even if there was a smile on his face, there seemed to be a faint layer of cold aura lingering around him. It made people unable to get close to him, as if they were afraid of offending and profaning him. It seemed that such a person could only be looked up to. But at this moment, his voice was low and mellow, with a hint of hoarseness. It was very different from his usual gentleness. Inexplicably, it was as if something was scratching her heart, making it itchy. The light at the side shone on his incomparably enchanting face. His brows were slightly knitted, and his phoenix-like eyes were focused. He looked at her deeply with gentleness, helplessness, and as if there was a trace of grievance. Chu Liuyue's heart suddenly softened. It was as if something had permeated the air. It was sour, sweet, and numb. It was rare for a man who was always tyrannical to show such an expression. That was why it was especially moving. Rong Xiu looked at her and said in a low voice, "No, I haven't had a good sleep in a long time." Miraculously, Chu Luiyue guessed his unspoken words immediately. Her eyes moved slightly, and she bent down slightly, moving closer to Rong Xiu. The two of them could almost hear each other's breaths. With a hint of a smile, she asked, "Why? Then does your Highness want to sleep with me?" Rong Xiu held her hand tightly. You agree?" Chu Liuyue seemed to be a little distressed and frowned. "But we haven't gotten married yet. This doesn't seem very good, right? Moreover, there is only one bed here." Rong Xiu suddenly smiled. "I can sleep on the ground." Chu Liuyue's expression froze. She immediately gritted her teeth and said, "There is only one quilt here." Rong Xiu's long fingertips gently rubbed the side of her wrist. "It's okay. I have several beds." Digression, continue in the afternoon, 6 p.m. Wah wah wah. Chapter 1101. Chu Liuyue truly did not know whether to praise the Holy Sun for his foresight, strategizing, and resourcefulness. He had actually prepared such a thing in advance. But seeing that a certain someone seemed to be aware of this, Chu Liuyue still very cooperatively invited him to sleep on the floor. Originally, she did not want to let Rong Xiu stay, but considering that there were still many soldiers guarding outside, it was really inappropriate to chase him out like this. In the end, Chu Liuyue chose to settle for the next best thing. The Holy Sun was very satisfied with this result. Some things were quite good to get used to in advance. In the end, the two peacefully began the night of not sharing a bed. Chu Liuyue was on the bed, and Rong Xiu was on the floor. She had a trace of hesitation at first, but when she saw Rong Xiu very calmly and politely take out 2 blankets, neatly make one bed, and even leave one for the other, Chu Liuyue felt that her hesitation was really unnecessary. Then, she simply closed her eyes, intending to sleep. Dusk fell, and the lights in the room went out one by one. The surroundings darkened. Rong Xiu seemed to have already laid down, and was not far from her. Actually, this bedchamber was very large, and there was a lot of space to sleep on the floor. But Rong Xiu still tried his best to fight for this last bit of compromise for himself. According to him, it was already pitiful enough that they were forced to sleep separately right after taking a consort. If they were too far apart, he would still not be able to sleep well. And so, Chu Liuyue had him sleep on the floor next to the bed, and at the same time, set up a barrier. It was quiet. Chu Liuyue lay on the bed, but she could not fall asleep no matter how hard she tried. After a long while, she finally opened her eyes. Moonlight spilled in through the window, as cool as water, casting faint shadows on the floor. Chu Liuyue turned her head and looked at Rong Xiu, who was sleeping not far away. From here, she could clearly see Rong Xiu's sleeping face. He rested his head on his arm, one of his long legs curled up. Even though the surrounding light was dim, the moonlight still clearly outlined the perfect lines of his face. The inexplicable anxiety and uneasiness in Chu Liuyue's heart suddenly dissipated. It was as if as long as this person was by his side, all problems would be easily solved. She blinked and tilted her body slightly to take a closer look. Even though he was sleeping, he was still as handsome as ever. It would be fine if he didn't open his eyes. Once it opened, it would suck in one's soul. It was as if it could pull one into a bottomless abyss, causing one to sink into oblivion. Suddenly, his brows furrowed as if he was having a nightmare. Then, his frown deepened. A faint layer of cold air covered his entire body. Chu Luiyue was shocked. Soon, she saw that there was a layer of frost on the ground. Under the reflection of the moonlight, it flashed with a bone-chilling light. "Rong Xiu!" Chu Luiyue called out to him. But Rong Xiu only curled up his body slightly. That thin layer of blanket covering his body seemed insignificant at this moment. Chu Luiyue sat up. "Rong Xiu!" Rong Xiu's face was buried in the shadows and couldn't be seen clearly. Chu Luiyue pursed her lips, dispersed the barrier, and walked over. "Rong Xiu, if you continue to pretend, I'm going to get angry." As Chu Luiyue spoke, she finally saw Rong Xiu's face clearly. When she saw that his thick eyelashes were also covered with a layer of frost, she finally realized that something was wrong. She quickly bent down and touched his face. It was cold to the touch. It was so cold that Chu Luiyue felt cold all over. Rong Xiu seemed to feel something. He grabbed her hand and pulled her into his embrace. His movements were rough and wild, completely different from his usual gentleness and restraint. Chu Luiyue tried her best not to scream out loud as she released the force from her body and followed his strength to fall into his arms. Rong Xiu's iron arms wrapped around Chu Luiyue and his long legs pressed down. He easily trapped her tightly in his embrace. Chu Luiyue's chest tightened. When she finally struggled out of his embrace and raised her head, she saw that his brows were slowly relaxing. Then, under Chu Luiyue's gaze, the frost on his eyelashes gradually melted. His originally cold skin gradually warmed up and returned to its normal temperature. Chu Luiyue didn't notice that the frost on the ground beside them was also disappearing bit by bit at this time. Rong Xiu's eyelashes moved. Just when Chu Luiyue thought that he was going to wake up, Rong Xiu changed to a more comfortable position and hugged her. His breathing gradually became long and deep. Chu Luiyue was confused. Is he asleep? The series of actions made Chu Luiyue suspect that he did it on purpose. However, seeing that he seemed to have really fallen asleep, Chu Luiyue couldn't bear to wake him up. Perhaps he really hasn't slept well during this period of time? Chu Luiyue looked at him for a while, raised her head slightly, leaned over, and gently tapped his lips. Then, she snuggled back into his arms and closed her eyes to sleep. For some reason, she fell into a deep sleep very quickly this time. After a long time, when she was completely asleep, the man in the dark slowly opened his eyes. He looked at her with a deep gaze. Although this consumed a little of his force, but it was very wise to let them prepare a double quilt in advance. The next day, Chu Luiyue woke up on the bed. Rong Xiu had already gone out. She subconsciously glanced at the ground. Yes, it's clean and tidy. The quilt has been carefully kept away by the holy sun. Chu Luiyue narrowed her eyes. Rong Xiu's body. I'll have to ask again if there's really something wrong with it. However, before she could ask, Dugu Mabao arrived. You're awake. If you're awake, get up and play chess. Chu Luiyue's head hurt. However, when she thought of Rong Xiu, she gritted her teeth, quickly washed up, and invited Dugu Mabao in. Let's begin. For the next few days, Chu Luiyue's life was the same every day. Every day, she would play chess with Dugu Mabao, then go to the training field to fight with the puppets for 4 hours. After that, she would spend some time to reflect and improve her cultivation. In between, she would also help Lin Qifei treat his illness and refine medicine. Usually, she could only see Rong Xiu at night. Chu Luiyue could feel that Rong Xiu was very busy. However, he didn't say what he was busy with, and Chu Luiyue didn't take the initiative to ask. It was just that he often couldn't sleep well at night. Chu Luiyue couldn't stand it anymore and would end up sleeping on the floor with him every time. Of course, she would always return to bed the next morning. The 5 days set by Dugu Mabao passed quickly. The puppets that Chu Luiyue fought with had really changed to mid-level level 8. Moreover, the time she spent every day on this had also increased to 6 hours. The results of the high-intensity training were also very obvious. Chu Luiyue's close combat strength had improved a lot compared to before. In addition, although she hadn't been able to quickly break through in martial artist cultivation, however, Chu Luiyue had broken through to the peak of level 8 as a mystic master. The distance to level 9 was within reach. You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.